Our new partner who I'm really, really excited to announce we are working with. Super, super stoked. Thank you, Angie Huberman, for this connect. It's incredible. AG1 Athletic Greens. I've been using them for a while. I have them every morning on an empty stomach. Basically, take one scoop and you put it into a cup or glass or mug of 8 ounces of cold water. And this is all your greens for the day. You're absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens. Every day I take this. It's so good for my digestion, my energy. It's simple. It's easy. I don't like taking a lot of vitamins. This has been really, really helpful for me. I've had a lot of stomach issues my whole life, and ever since I've been gluten-free and taking the AG1s, it's really helped me in my stomach in the mornings. I love it, and I'm so psyched that they're part of the One Life, One Chance podcast. I'm sure a lot of people don't like eating greens, let alone drinking your greens, but I can tell you straight up, it's got a mild tropical taste, and the taste is actually really refreshing, and I really look forward to it each morning. Don't think it's just going to be just straight bland. It tastes really, really good, and it's good for you, so remember that. This one blend of ingredients supports your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, recovery, focus, and aging. It's incredible, just one scoop, especially for musicians who are vegans or just musicians in general who want to get those daily greens. You can get the packets. It's incredible. I just gave some to my friend Derek from Sepultura. He traveled the whole entire world this summer, and he had those every single day. He said it saved him. I bring AG1s with me when I travel. It helps me stay healthy. You know the deal. If you're on tour and you are a picky eater, but you need to have your greens, sometimes catering doesn't have greens. Sometimes you miss the catering. Sometimes you miss the backstage food. Sometimes it's too late after the show to go get food that you like. So if you just have a scoop of AG1s in your hotel room before you go to bed, or you're in the hotel room at night and you're starving, you want something healthy, boom, life changer. Right now, it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with some convenient daily nutrition. That's all you need, one scoop in a cup every day. That's it. No need for a million different pills and supplements to look out for your health. This is it. I'm super psyched. And to make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit drinkag1.com/OLLC. That's drinkag1.com/OLLC. Take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. This is incredible. I love it. It's just basic greens. For me personally, this has changed my life tremendously. I'm not a junk food vegan. I don't eat a lot of fake meats, so I'm strictly greens. And this has been a wonderful, wonderful new addition to my life. So once again, visit drinkag1.com/OLLC. That's drinkag1.com/OLLC. Get 1 free year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. That's drinkag1.com/OLLC. Yo, Liquid Death, thank you so much for hydrating all my guests, taking care of me and my family and my friends. Love your water, love your brand, love what you stand for, love what you give back to the community. If you want to learn more about Liquid Death and how it started, listen to episode 115. With the co-founder, owner, and creator of Liquid Death, Mike Cesario. Just a punk rock skateboarding kid from Delaware with a dream. It's an incredible story, incredible journey. So if you go liquiddeath.com/Toby, you get free shipping on any items you order from liquiddeath.com. And if you want to get water, Liquid Death water, go to amazon.com. But for merchandise and other things that's not water, go to liquiddeath.com/Toby and get free shipping. Thank you so much, Liquid Death. Death to plastic, murder your thirst, stay hydrated. You know H2O saves lives. Hang out. Welcome to the One Life, One Chance podcast. I'm your host, Toby Morse. I have a very special co-host today. My brother, my father figure for 100 years, Mr. Rusty Pistachio. Thank you, Rusty.
You're very welcome.
I just put you on the spot like 5 minutes ago. You're out here for like 24 hours. We're hanging. You had a nice day today. I'm like, okay, just co-host.
Yeah, why not?
I knew it'd be a good vibe because East Coast all together, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
We got Jersey in the house.
Yeah. Chris Gethard, thank you for being here, man.
I can't tell you how much this one means to me, honestly.
Well, thank you. I've heard, we'll get to that story later, but
I got to tell, it will mean so much for me to be able to tell you that story.
No, I know, you made me emotional
face.
thinking about it, but I've heard this story from this guy named Chris Gethard for years, through all different podcasts and different stories. People text me, they DM me, all about you, and now you're in my kitchen, so thank you for being here.
It's the coolest. It's the coolest, because it's...
Can we kick it off with the story, and then we'll get into your life?
I kind of probably won't be able to get it out of my head until I tell you the story.
Let's go.
But it's... because I have
It's going to make me emo, but it's going to make me proud that I don't know, just make me nice.
Well, and I'm glad your listeners get to hear it, too. because I told it on Damian Abraham's podcast too, which I think is that's where all of a sudden I
turned
knew
out the punk.
everybody was telling you about it.
Great pod.
Yeah, and great guy.
Great guy.
But yeah, you guys put out the first album. I was in high school, right? That was the one My Friends Look Out For Me Like Family. That was the first one.
96.
I was in North Jersey, and I think we caught that early wave of it because as that album was spreading, we were right there in Jersey. Like, it physically made its way to us.
Yeah.
And everybody loved it. And I went and saw you guys. And I actually called my friend who brought me to the show. I had an older friend named Mike, and he was the guy who always knew where the shows were and everything. I called him today. And I wonder if you guys will remember this show, because we couldn't remember. It was some town in Jersey. It was really weird that you were there. It was like Randolph, New Jersey.
Okay.
In my mind,
Random New Jersey. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But in my mind, I was like, I think it was in like a closed down roller skating rink. And he was like, I don't remember that. And he was like, if I remember it, they might have been filming it for a video or something. It was some part of Morris County, like out there.
Morris County Youth Crew.
Those guys and the Bergen County Youth Crew. Bane of my goddamn existence with those Bergen County Youth Crew guys. I was telling you guys before I started recording. No. I'm a pop punk guy. I tried to get into hardcore. I used to wear the hoodies, try to come in for afternoon shows. But then the Bergen County Youth Crew would show up at shows in Jersey and just beat the shit out of all of us. And I was like, I can't with these kids, man.
Hell no.
I can't. But so I went and saw you guys, and it was great. It was a great show. It was really, really great. Start to finish. If I remember right, you guys played a cover of Heaven Knows I'm Miserable Now by the Smiths.
Oh, yeah.
This dude from my hometown, this older punk guy named Brian Malloy, who we all know, he jumped up. I think you guys were like, who knows all the words? And he jumped up and sang it with you. We were like, that's a kid from our town.
Oh, wow.
Singing with H2O.
That's cool.
Awesome.
It was great. And I also became, because you guys covered the Smiths and Jay Church covered a Smiths song that I heard. And this local band from Little Falls, New Jersey, the Lavalinas, and I became obsessed with the Smiths, so I blame you for that in part. But most important is before the show, my friends brought me, and I look back, and I was a very troubled kid. And I would later be diagnosed with really severe depression, and it got bad. And it got bad after, like, throughout college, it was getting really bad, and I was hiding it. And a couple years after college, I finally had to tell my mom that I was suicidal, and it was brutal. I had to wake her up in the middle of the night, and I was like, Mom, because I had an incident where I wound up calling my ex-girlfriend in the middle of the night, driving home on Route 3 in New Jersey. And I was like ranting and raving and panicking, and she was like, I've just seen this happen too many times. You got to tell your mom. You need to ask for help. She was like, I'm calling your mom tomorrow, so tell her now. Like, now's your chance, because I'm telling her in the morning.
How old were you again?
At that point, I was probably 23.
Okay.
Man.
But I think when I saw you guys, that first album came out, I think I was 15 or 16. Was it like 95, 96?
Yeah.
So I was 15 going on 16. I turned 16 in 96. So this was years before I would seek help. And I was at that show, dude, and there were a bunch of video games in the back, and they were turned off. And I was just standing by them. And all my friends were doing their thing, and I was just standing by them. And I was just this kid who just lived in my own head perpetually. And I was constantly scared and freaked out and felt like something was wrong with me. And it would be years before I sought help. And I was standing back by these video games. And then I looked up, and Toby from H2O is walking up to me. I was off in the corner by myself. I was avoiding people, I was just I'm still to this day one of these people. There's sometimes where I can walk in and charm the room, and then I can walk in the next day, same group of people, and I will crumble and not know. And it's the bane of my existence to this day, side of myself. And I was just having this night where I was like, I can't talk to people. I can't be around people. Why am I here? I really liked that record. I liked the band. I had been excited for the show, and I was just like panicking, like in a panic in my head. And you walked up to me, and you were like, oh, the games are shut off, huh? I was like, oh, yeah, I guess so. And you were like, oh, that's a bummer. I think they had one of the basketball games. You were like, I was hoping to play that. And I knew you were like bullshitting right away. I was like, I know. And you were just like, hey, man, everything all right with you? And I was like, I don't know. I don't know what's going on. And you were just like, all right, man, well, I see you. Hang in there. I hope you have a good time at the show. It was this quick interaction. But when I tell you, it was the first time another human being saw me and saw what was going on and actually took the chance to like break that social barrier of mind your own business and actually went, I can tell something's up. Are you okay? When I tell you that you were the first person who ever did that for me,
Wow.
that is not a lie. And I remember still to this day being so struck by that because H2O playing North Jersey in 96.
Yeah.
You didn't even need to come out and look at the people. There's a lot of artists who don't. There's a lot of people who just want to stay in the green room and avoid the people and treat these people like if they paid their $10, great. That's why they're here. And I'll sit in the green room and do you have all the stuff that's on my rider? Where's my fruit plate?
Yeah.
That's how most artists are.
Yeah.
And you were out there. Not only were you in the room, when I tell you I was trying to hide in the corner and you saw me.
Damn.
Dude, that I can tell you to this day, not only did that interaction like mean so much to me then, but I never forgot it. And on top of it, when I managed to become an artist myself, because I was joking with you guys before we even started recording, like I loved the first record. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I'm encyclopedic about H2O because I realized hardcore, like I said, like the hardcore kids used to want to do the Wall of Death and all that stuff. And I was like, I can't hang at these. I can't. And I mean, like Ensign, that's a Jersey hardcore band I loved. Saw them a million times. Lifetime, who had the poppy side. Like there's some of it I love, but I can't pretend. So much good. Heckle. There was a Jersey hardcore band called Heckle.
Yeah, we played with Heckle.
Smaller scale, didn't bust out as much, but Heckle, I loved them growing up.
Heckle.
But for me, it was more, Lookout, Mutant Pop, that side of punk. That I found my place there. So I can't pretend, but I will tell you, when I became an artist, I have always, to this day, I always am like, it's about the people, and anything that gets in between me and the people, I gotta slice through it and avoid it. Like any manager or agent trying to make money off of me, if they're not helping it, they need to get out of the way. If there's like something I'm working on that's a written thing and somebody's trying to give me notes, I sit here, I go, are you giving me these notes to try to help, or because you want your fingerprints on it for your ego? If that's it, it's getting in between me and the people. Get out of the way. And I'm someone who almost to a certain point has self-sabotaged aspects of my career because I just do not want to participate in a system that is wrong.
Yeah.
And
that's the punk in you.
And I'm not trying to pat myself on the back too hard about that, but so much of it goes back to like, I don't care about any side of entertainment that's not about connecting with real people.
Yeah.
And
that's why we loved hardcore, because you could go see a band, and I could go see Milo in 1983 or 4 selling merch at the table after they saw him perform for the first time in my life on, you know what I mean, in Rhode Island, and I could talk to him and say, yo, great show. And that's connection like I have with you, is that we're all equal. We're just people that love this music together, and the stage doesn't mean shit. And it's, you know what I'm saying? So that's how I got into it, and that's what inspired me with those bands. And so talking to you is just like, you're at the show. We're all here together. You know what I mean? You're a fucking person. And I don't want to cry in my pod, which I've done before, but I'm emotional hearing a story from you face to face because I've heard the story.
I mean, you could tell. I was looking at Rusty. I couldn't even look you in the eye during it though, because I'm telling you, like when I say that I was a kid who like thought about killing myself all the time in high school.
Yeah. And
you were the first person to notice it. I'm like, man, it taught me a lot about why it's still to this day, like, the reason I've told the story on other podcasts is a lot of times when people ask me, like, why did you build your TV show on public access?
Yeah.
Or like, why do you do these certain things with fans? Or why do you structure your career in this way that to other people it doesn't make sense? That story's come up because I'm like, that to me was one of the most impactful interactions I ever had with the arts.
Yeah.
And if I could give that to other people, that's way more important than any other side effect of having this career. And I thank you for it deeply.
Well, you're very welcome, man. And you don't know, just talking to somebody, any person, and just acknowledging them or talking what that can do with something. You know what I mean? Like I'm honored, and I'm proud that it's you, and I'm honest. I'm stoked to meet you and your whole career. That I just deep dive for the past couple of days, and your journey too, and fighting with depression the whole time too. You know what I mean? That's Chappelle Lacey. He's gonna be hanging out in here. He just told a crazy story. You can't talk unless you're on the mic. You know the rules. But a crazy story that I heard throughout my life about me meeting him when he was a kid and talking to him when he was, a kid at the show. Was going through a lot of things, and I said, "You okay?" I went up to him. He was back at the venue bar.
He was the first person that when I was a very, very dangerously depressed person, and I had successfully hid it from everyone except Toby.
Me.
The only person that was like,
He saw.
Well,
He's a kid at my show by himself in the back of this room.
But I look back too, and I'm like, there were people in my life who were like, "What's going on with you?" Sometimes, but either because I managed to push it away, or because there's that thing of like, you don't talk about this stuff.
Yeah.
And you just clearly were like, "Fuck it." This kid looks visibly sad in the back of the room, and you found some excuse to come talk to me. It blew my mind. It blew my mind then, let alone now.
It's so honored to meet you now. I mean, I'm sure we crossed paths since, I don't know, then, but just to have you in my kitchen.
Yeah,
your career
it means the world. If all I get to do on this podcast is tell you that story, mission accomplished, because it meant so much to me.
I heard it loud and clear, and I'm fucking.
Yeah, it's awesome.
I'm just so happy that whatever was instilled in me from my peers, that I brought it to, and I don't know.
I would say too.
I guess I should be a psychologist or something. I don't know.
Then you have to follow so many rules with that. Then you have to obey all these rules.
I'm telling you. Yeah.
You know,
damn,
you got to be a free spirit.
I mean,
you're a feral dog. You can't be playing by
not to get into depression and not to get into like anxiety, which we will get into, but because we have another comedian, Chappelle Lacey, in this room, that I've seen him and his struggles, because we all go through struggles, but it seems like a lot of comedians and people that make people laugh have a lot of pain and come from these hard things and depression and anxiety.
I think so. I also worry there's a little bit of like romanticizing of that I worry about, of people going like, oh, the whole Chris Farley story and John Belushi story. It's like, well,
Williams.
And but I sit here and I go, if we didn't romanticize Belushi, maybe we wouldn't have lost Farley, you know? So I worry about making it too much of the sad, fucked up comedian. Like,
yeah.
To me, I'm like, no, get help. Like, there's too many people I know in comedy where you'll be at some club or in the back room of some bar after a show where you're like, you're a troubled person and you're not getting help because you think it's going to stop you from being a comedian. Like, that's dangerous. Yeah. Don't do that. But also, a lot of the best comedians are people where I think like they have something to say and they need those laughs because those laughs are the only thing in that whole day that makes them feel like they're connecting to another human being. Yeah. And that's me in a nutshell.
Yeah. I have this like, well, for me personally, like if I'm depressed, I don't go on stage. I
almost have to.
Yeah, see, I don't do it at all. Because I'm like, because of that thing that people think, like that every comedian's like that. Not every comedian's like that, but I'm one of those ones like I'm not gonna go up if I'm like just depressed. Like when my brother died in 2013, I just stopped doing comedy. Yeah, I bet. So I was like, what do you want me to do? I'm like, I don't feel like doing anything. And it wasn't until, I figured, life out or figured out my life as an individual to where I was able to get back on stage. So I'm one of those ones that I'll just sit back. But you do see it a lot in comedy where someone's just kind of like, you can tell in their jokes. That's how you can tell their delivery of their jokes and what they're saying. You can just see it, like where you're like, damn, I wish they would just get help.
Yeah.
You see it big time.
It bums me out. And the tide has turned. Like, I do think people are romanticizing it less the past 10 years, but I've been doing it 23 years. And even in the course of my career, I've seen people finally start to, like every comedian. There's actually a New York thing. I am not with this guy. There's a shrink in New York who has like every comedian sees the same shrink. There's one guy who sees like 15 New York comedians. It's become like a whole thing that everybody talks about, having a shrink now with each other. Wow. And that's good and that's healthy and I'm into it. Because it is comedy has a lot of dark pockets. And there's even in the past few years, obviously everybody's been hearing stories. And a lot of us knew versions of those stories for a long time. And there's more dark stories. Yeah. But a lot of it is this unchecked mental illness that we romanticize, and it's dark. It's dark. Yeah. It's dangerous. Same thing with music, though, right?
Totally, man. I mean, it's very therapeutic to write songs and play music and get things out through that. And same with comedy. I'm sure it's therapeutic for you. Yeah. Talk about things and laugh about things and look inside yourself.
Yeah.
But let's take it back to fucking the streets of West Orange, bro.
There you go.
A lot of people from Orange, man.
Essex County, New Jersey. Yeah. There's a lot of us.
We were saying before, like a lot of hip hop from West Orange. I mean, Naughty by Nature, I think. I'm pretty sure.
They came up in East Orange.
East Orange.
AKA Illtown.
Illtown.
And then, funnily enough, when they got successful, they bought houses in West Orange. And I have a buddy who grew up in this neighborhood where one time they were playing Manhunt, like hide and seek, And he was like cutting through some yard, hiding in some bushes. And some guy came out and was like, "The fuck are you doing, man? Get the fuck!" And he looked up and he was like, "Oh, it's Vinny from Naughty by Name. We got to get the fuck out of here." He was hiding in Vinny's backyard, and I'm sure Vinny was freaked out and thought it was like a stalker or something. It was just some neighborhood kid. But they were all like, "Oh shit, it's Vinny!"
Holy shit!
Yeah.
Was
Yeah.
Queen Latifah East Orange or
Queen Latifah was
you
East
said
Orange.
Whitney Houston?
I think Whitney Houston was Newark and East Orange.
Damn.
But yeah, that's
Lot
all
of-
the
lot of
suburbs of
talent
Newark,
in
which
there.
is you guys know. I bet you guys have been to this place. One of the first places I ever went and saw shows was my older brother and his friends used to take me to the Pipeline. in
Pipeline,
Newark.
yes.
Oh, yeah.
And I couldn't
Sketchy
believe my
ass.
parents would let me go to that neighborhood.
Sketchy neighborhood, Newark.
I could not believe my parents were letting me
Remember
go
that
there.
place?
The bodega across the street.
Yeah, it was
You're
a
like,
bodega.
you'd have somebody stand in the door and keep an eye open when you went into the bodega because you're like, you don't know what the fuck might happen to you.
Yeah, I went to the pipe. I missed City Gardens. City Gardens shut. My older brother and his friends got to the tail end of City Gardens.
Okay.
That was the legendary one, but I did
Oh,
get
yeah.
to see the Pipeline, which people talk about less, but was another one of these weird, just like fringe neighborhood in Jersey spots
Dude,
where a lot of cool shit happened.
So did your brothers? You have older brothers?
My brother's he was 3 grades ahead of me, and him
Okay.
and his older friends got me into.
They got you into the
Yeah.
punk and everything.
Yeah, the first time I ever saw live music was I had just graduated 8th grade. I hadn't even entered high school. And my buddy Mike D, who I'm really tight with to this day, he was my older brother's friend, and he was throwing a show in the basement of a church in our town. It was just a few local bands, and I went, and it like I just never forgot that feeling. I remember realizing like, oh, the band I liked the most, they were from Nutley. I'm like, that's like 3 towns away. And I was 13 and they were all like 16 or 17. And when I realized that, I was like, oh, there's no rules.
No rules.
There's no rules in life. Like really right away, I was like, oh, we're allowed to do anything. And
That's cool.
yeah, and then the second show I ever saw, my buddy Nick, they had a July 4th barbecue in his backyard. It was a bunch of local bands, but that one was cool because they got a call last minute from this band that was like, hey, we're from Florida and we're on our first tour and our show in Jersey fell through that day. Can we just play your barbecue? And it was like, yeah, of course, come through. And it was Less Than Jake on their first tour.
Oh my god! Holy
nice.
shit!
Yeah, which
How
was like,
cool is that?
I know there's people who like to clown on ska. I know ska's also coming back now, but to be listening to a bunch of bands that were just like other North Jersey kids farting around, and then Less Than Jake, who came out of the gate so hard,
So hard.
just tore up my friend's backyard, and then we're just like hanging out eating with us afterwards. I remember I was so young
That's
then.
awesome.
I had a tape of theirs that was like their demo tape that later became Pezcore, and I was so little. I remember getting shots at my pediatrician and listening to that Less Than Jake tape because I hated getting shots. I was so young. I was still seeing a pediatrician
Wow.
when I saw them, and that was my intro. And then yeah, from there it was just my whole high school experience. And then I went to college at Rutgers, which is New Brunswick, which,
Yeah.
as you guys know, has always had
We played there before too,
Yeah,
Rutgers.
New
Yeah.
Brunswick.
basement
that's
shows
Vision-
are legendary and
Vision
everything.
territory.
Division territory. yeah.
Lifetime, like
Lifetime.
Bouncing Souls, Lifetime.
That's like the
Handy
land
Street.
Of, the
yeah,
land
Handy
of the
Street
base.
shut down right before I got there.
And
The
the house
summer
they
before I
chose
got
at?
there.
Yeah, the basement
The
show.
Melody Bar was big for us. Court Tavern, like a bunch of spots. But yeah, Handy Street was the basement show. That I think the guys from Ensign and Lifetime ran that.
Yeah, yeah.
And it shut down right as I got to college, and I was so bummed. 67 Handy Street. I knew about it. I was ready to go.
Did we do one? We did one basement show
We might,
out there.
yeah.
I bet.
Maybe,
it must
yeah.
have, was it awesome?
Yeah, the
remember-
basement shows in Jersey was a
Oh, yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
Like the churches and all that stuff. Jersey was really always great to
I
us,
always
man.
wondered what I've wanted to ask you for years, like, because in our mind, you guys were like cool and tough and from New York. So when you would come through and do Jersey shows, I'm like, these guys are just gonna think we're like little kids and kind of pussies, man.
No, man, we loved those shows. It was so different. I mean, from CBGBs to like a basement.
Because in my mind, I went
There
to
was-
those CB's afternoon shows a few times,
Yeah.
and I remember feeling like I was actively in danger at them. And I don't know how
Oh, yeah.
real that was, because there's a part of me that was
It was
like a
kinda real.
sheltered little Jersey kid.
Yeah.
So I'm sure I was overblowing it, but it also seems like it was kind of real.
Yeah, and everybody's such older, and it's scarier, and it's a
Yeah.
big city, and
Yeah.
like,
I
and
felt
I
like-
love going to Jersey, playing
yeah.
the Jersey shows, man.
It must have been. Now I'm an artist. I'm like, oh, you guys got to go do a show and then sleep in your own beds after. That's nice.
Yes.
Just that alone must have.
Exactly.
Now I
Yeah.
get it more. But in my mind, it was you guys came through a bunch, and then the other New York band that came. Oh, George Tabb used to come out a lot with Furious George.
Okay.
And LES Stitches.
Yep.
Yeah.
They played a bunch of Jersey shows, and I was scared of all of the New York bands. It was like all these guys are like street tough, fucking crazy people.
It's all a
and
facade.
I don't even know how much of it was real with any of those bands.
You don't know, yeah. Did you like Sick of It All and stuff like that?
I liked them. Yeah, I liked them. I can't claim I was encyclopedic, but well aware of them.
You're more pop punk.
More pop punk. But my brother's older friends loved that they had me because I was like this little baby. I didn't go. I also was a horrific late bloomer.
Okay.
I don't think I had a pube until I was like 16.
I had mine till 17.
Yeah, so we were. So you know,
Straight up, man. It was
like
weird.
that was scary.
I was tripping on that.
Imagine me going to a CB's matinee as that to be like, holy shit! I don't even have pubes. These people hit each other with fucking bricks and stuff. You know what I mean? Like these guys dance, and it looks like they're trying to knock each other out. So I was scared. But my older brother's crew, they all loved having this like little baby face kid because they all would feed me mixtapes, and that's how I found out about everything. Was all my older brother's friends wanted me to like their mixtape the best. And then we had WFMU radio in Jersey
and WSOU too.
And oh, dude, nobody talks about SOU.
They fucking put us on, bro.
Dude, it's all
Hardcore
Seton Hall
Dave.
basketball. I'm still a fanatical Seton Hall basketball fan to this day. And dude,
Seton
people
Hall.
out there don't realize, a lot of music people know about FMU because it's like the music nerd freeform station. WSOU, it's a Catholic college that for some reason has this
Great punk rock.
insane death black
heavy.
metal shit, like Scandinavian death metal shit. Like, how is this a Catholic university's radio station? It's just,
I didn't even know they were Catholic.
dude, it's a Catholic school.
Yeah.
Okay.
All of their literature at the school is like, WSOU does not represent what the clergy, the mission of the school. I don't know how it still happens, but it's like basketball and straight up grindcore and like dark shit.
They were the first radio station to play us, I think.
That's awesome. I had no
they
idea.
really pushed us hard.
Dude,
man.
SOU,
Probably one of the-
nobody talks about SOU.
probably one of the first interviews that we did.
Yeah, radio
Like,
interview was
radio.
WSOU.
Yeah.
They had a crazy hardcore night or something. I don't know what was going
To
on.
this day, if you turn on SOU, 90% of the time you're either going to hear a broadcast of a basketball game or just at any given point of day. It's just the heaviest shit.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Were your parents cool about you going to shows with your brothers and knew you were safe and stuff?
They were. I think they liked that we had a thing to do. We also, there were a couple times where I lied about going to shows where they were like, oh, sorry. It's like, you know, it'd be like, there's like little, and I look back now, I'm a parent, and they'd be like, no, there's like a tropical storm that's going to hit New Jersey. You can't go see your poor guest, John Ross Bowie from Egghead. They were like the New York pop punk band that used to come out, and I loved them. And they had a fanzine called Go Metric, and I was obsessed with it because that comedy punk crossover was real for me.
Okay.
And those guys used to put out this fanzine that was funny, legitimately laugh out loud funny, and I loved Egghead. They were playing a VFW hall in Berkeley Heights. My parents were like, you can't go. There's like flooding all over the state. So we lied and they caught us. Oh, so like that was, and my brother, I was an idiot. They told us we were going to go to our friend Mike's house. My parents were like, just call when you get there. We forgot. And then I called from the show on a payphone in the back of the VFW hall. So there's bands. And you guys remember this too. Jersey, one of the cool things about Jersey that I loved was there were not enough bands and enough people in the early, when I was still young enough that like you couldn't just have an all pop punk show.
Mm-hmm.
I saw Ensign so many times, even though I wasn't really a hardcore kid, and I came to love him because it's like you're going to see the pop punk band and then some guy with an acoustic guitar, and here's the hardcore band, and here's the band you came to see. Like, it was not enough. You couldn't support all the separate scenes.
Yeah.
So everybody had to team up. Yeah. And I went and saw, and there was some hardcore. It might have been Heckle playing before Egghead. And I'm on the payphone. I'm like, yeah, I'm at Mike's house. She's like, okay, can you turn down the music? I'm like, it's all right. I think the volume's broke. I just lied. We got home. They were like, where'd you really go? I was like, we went to Mike's house. My brother was like, we went to a show. They were like, you're in trouble. My brother, they're like, you're in some trouble. You're in a lot more fucking trouble, you little liar. So I got myself into trouble with that a little bit. But overall, I think they liked it. They liked that I was finding something that made me happy, and most of my friends connected to the music scene were like fundamentally good kids. Some of them, obviously, like any scene, were getting in trouble or like had some family situations where it was not ideal. But my mom always rooted for the underdog kids, and everybody was always welcome in our house. But yeah, there was some drinking and drugs and stuff. But for suburban kids, it was mostly just, you know, Let It Rock Records was this store in Montclair on Bloomfield Ave. We used to get all our records there, or drive down to Vintage Vinyl and Woodbridge. And
we played there once.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, the in-stores there were great.
So sick.
So great.
That was fun.
Yeah, those were the stores, and then got to Rutgers, and
What was your major? Like, what were you trying to do? Like,
I wound up getting a degree in a thing called American Studies, but that was just the easiest. I figured out, I tried to drop out at one point, and my parents were like, just get a degree. My dad is a guy who, like, education is supremely important to him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And he was like, just get a degree, because if you drop out, I know you're not going back. But I had discovered comedy. It was funny because when I was at Rutgers, like, Handy Street closed, the Melody Bar closed, and I kind of fell out with music. And then I found comedy. I started going to New York all the time to pursue comedy. And what's funny is people give me a lot of credit as like a punk comedian. And they're like, oh, New Brunswick. And I was there at the same time as like Thursday and Midtown and those bands. But I was at that point kind of very, if I had a free night, I was trying to do comedy at that point. So I didn't really witness as much of that as I was there at the same time. And I knew Gabe from Midtown because he had been in a band called Humble Beginnings. That was a big Jersey band.
Shout out to Gabe, and I love Gabe.
He's a dude.
Yeah.
I always say that guy carried an entire generation of New Jersey pop punk shows.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
I was at all those shows, these smaller bands, Humble Beginnings, Lane Meyer. There was a great band from Central Jersey called Boxcar, like all these things. And so much of it was because Gabe was like a very talented, charming, charismatic, and let's face it, handsome kid.
Yeah.
Like girls, you
Tall,
could pretty much have
that.
30 people at a show because of Gabe.
Yeah.
Because you were going to get a bunch of kids who like the music and a bunch of girls who were madly in love with them. And also, let's be fair, girls who love the music as well. I'm not trying to be reductive.
Yeah.
But like having this dude who had such charisma when we were young, he brought a lot of people to shows.
And we can't forget Ben from Dilemma, who's the drummer of, come on, the big Jersey band.
Gaslight Anthem.
Gaslight Anthem.
Oh, Benny
Little
Horowitz.
Benny used to put our shows in when he was a teenager.
Great guy.
And we
Great
call
guy.
him Little Ben, but he's like
Little
Baby
Ben,
Huey.
who became
Big,
the Gaslight Anthem drummer, who's killing
Big
it
young
now.
guy.
I've gotten to know him a little bit.
He did most of our shows though.
That's
back then.
awesome. And you must also known Ricky Supporta, Gabe's brother, because he
Yes.
put on a ton of shows too, like the Wayne Firehouse and Skaters World. There were some legendary shows in those spots.
Yeah, but Ben was a little kid. He's like, "Oh, I have a contract for you." Just, oh, he's like, he was so awesome. He loved the core. He had some
He's
great
still
shows.
cool, man.
Oh,
He's
yeah.
cool to
I
this
know.
day.
I was on his pod. Like I'm so
I was
psyched
too.
for him.
I've done it too. Yeah, he's great. He's
So
great.
yeah, Jersey's getting a lot of props. It deserves it.
Yeah,
Man.
I had a great time and yeah, great time with it. And
You never wanted to play music?
I always secretly wished I was a singer in a band. To this day, I'm 43. I'm like, someday maybe I can pull it off.
You could still do it.
But and I've had friends like when I had my public access show, I got to bring it all back because when we were on New York Public Access, we started having musical guests, and well, and it was funny too because we had been doing our show at the Upright Citizen Brigade Theater.
Yeah.
That's where I started. When I was 19, I found that place, and it was in an old shut down strip club on 22nd Street. And I walked in, and John Bowie from Egghead was the guy who you signed up for classes, and John was the guy who signed you up. I was like, "You're the bassist from Egghead." He was like, "What the fuck?" Like,
That's awesome.
and then I walked in, and I was like, it just felt to me like the shows I used to go. It was same vibe.
Yeah.
And UCB grew and got a lot more corporate along the way. But in the early days, the reason I was terrified of New York. When my parents were raising me, New York was like the Bronx was on fire. I was born in 1980. My parents grew up in a time when it was like you don't go to New York.
Yeah.
And they'd send us on field trips to see a Broadway show, and my mom would be like, hold your wallet in your hand the whole time, never let go of it. And then the bus would drive us through Times Square back in the 80s. And I showed up, we'd go on field trips, and we got to see the tail end of Times Square, you know?
Yeah.
And like when we were kids, we'd sneak into the city, you'd take a bus to Port Authority. I think to this day, Port Authority is the one place in Manhattan Giuliani just forgot.
Yeah. it's
Giuliani forgot to get to Port Authority. It's still,
whole area.
dude, my
Sketchy.
friend Mike, who I keep mentioning, he once, legendary story in our gang,
What was your gang called?
he had a fanzine called Marsha, and that was pretty popular in North Jersey, so we were the Marsha. Everybody knew us as the Marsha crew, they would call us. And named after Marsha from the Brady Bunch, because he was in love with her.
Marsha.
And my friend, his little brother, actually, he told me his little brother you befriended him. His little brother was this kid named Fran Dolan, and he said you used to interact. My buddy Fran knew everything about hardcore and was a real record collector nerd. And he was buddies with like the guy who ran Mutant Pop out on the West Coast. And he said Mike Dean, my buddy Mike, was like Fran and Toby were like they interacted a bunch. They knew each other. a little bit.
Hey, Dolan.
Dolan. It sounds
You know,
like Bill Dolan
you know,
was different
yeah,
though.
Bill
Real
Dolan
skinny.
from American
But
Standard.
yeah, so yeah, Mike D once snuck into. We would sneak into the city some because when we all started drinking in the even up until like the early 2000s, nobody was carding you in New York. And
Yeah.
you could get a 40 at a bodega. wearing your West Orange High School varsity jacket. You know, like my buddy did that one. He's like, I forgot to take off my jacket. And we're like, well, they didn't call the cops. Like, we're good. But he was in Port Authority once and he had to use the bathroom, but he realized, like, I can't leave because I'll miss the last bus. And if you miss the last bus, you're going to get caught. So he's like, I'm going to take a shit at Port Authority, which is like a nightmare.
Mistake.
It's like CB's, yeah.
He goes in and he's in the stall and he says he's got the door closed. Obviously, no one else is in there. And then he hears the door open. He's like, fuck. And then he hears all this screaming. And he was like, whatever the fuck's going on out there, I got to just like run past. I can't stop. And he said he came out and there was like a guy who's, I mean, I'm not trying to make fun of someone who's clearly got some mental issues, but he said this guy was like, had a pair of pliers and he was pulling out his teeth. He was like doing dental work on himself in the bathroom at Port Authority. My buddy, he said he couldn't use a public restroom for like 15 years. He couldn't shit in a public bathroom for years after that.
After that?
Scarred.
Yeah. So
what was the inspiration to start doing stand-up and doing comedy?
I always loved comedy growing up. My older brother, like we grew up on a side of town where my older brother was one of these guys who just, I look back at his childhood and it fucking, like he got his ass handed to him. He got bullied really bad. And
Your older brother, okay.
Yeah, we grew up in a town that was like mostly Irish Catholic. And I look back and a lot of the families, there was some drinking problem and alcoholism and stuff. And it was what it was. He got it handed to him. I took it a little bit. Like we were both little late bloomer kids and our last names spelled Gethard. Like there was no way around it in the late 80s in North Jersey. Like we took it on the chin.
That was the thing, get hard.
Oh yeah, that didn't help anything, you know.
Oh, you hard, motherfucker?
Yeah, a little bit. Like, oh, you fucking bone, like constant. So, damn. My brother, like I actually got in a lot of fights growing up, and I was just like, if anybody even messes me, let's just get the fight over with.
Wow.
My brother went the opposite direction. He became he never wanted to fight. He would sometimes like clown on kids and stand up for himself that way. But he more so, I give him so much credit because he was like, he found WFMU when he was in like 5th or 6th grade. He'd sit up in his room in the attic just listening to the FMU, which you think about that radio station, like a kid who's 10 years old, it should go over his head. But he'd order their catalog and then we'd order stuff from that. And he was listening to the Ramones when he was like 10, 11 years old. Awesome. And my parents were not music people. I don't even know how he found it. And then comedy too, he'd be like, he always like he showed me Andy Kaufman when I was real young and I was obsessed with him from a young age. Amazing. He knew like New Yorkers, you guys know as New Yorkers, like Howard Stern, like all this stuff with him, like throwing baloney at strippers. We were like, who cares? But my brother was like, no. Here's why he's a genius. Like my brother was like, here's how he's like breaking radio and like, let's watch his old Channel 9, all the Channel 9 fucking Secaucus, Richard Bay show, Morton Downey.
I remember Richard Bay.
The Downey guy, yeah.
All that crate. My brother loved all these weird Spanish language game shows. Uncle Floyd, all this shit my brother found that was just weird underground stuff because he was like a bullied kid who I think just had to go find his identity through that. So he handed me music. He also handed me comedy. And some of it too, not to keep harping on the punk stuff, but there were bands I liked that I started to realize they are funny and they do a lot of, like there was a band called Weston, pop punk band from Pennsylvania.
Play with him a bunch.
They were the fucking kings of my high school experience. It was like, it was weird because, because for us, it was like the Bouncing Souls were coming up as the big Jersey band.
Big band.
And they were starting to get big and bust out beyond Jersey. But I was there like 93, 94. They were still just like a New Brunswick band. And then we all watched. But Weston were from Pennsylvania. And we unofficially, in Jersey, they were as beloved as the Bouncing Souls in a way. They played a ton of shows together. And those guys were fucking funny. They'd get in fights in between their songs. They'd strip down to their underwear. They'd have songs where they messed up and then start yelling at each other, but playfully on stage about it. And I remember I saw Weston a ton. And at a certain point I realized, I was like, I want to be in a band to tell the jokes in between the songs. That was one of the first times where I was like, the thing I get most excited about when I think about being in a band is telling the jokes in between the songs. And then I had a teacher in high school who pulled me aside. And she was like, you're kind of a wise ass. And I was like, I know. And like teachers were tired of me by my senior year. She's like, take my drama class. And I was like, I don't know about that. And I'd done the school plays and stuff because I had this inkling to me, but it was all musicals. I was like, this is not my thing. And she made it all, she was like, she sat me down and she was like, all the other teachers are mad at you because you won't shut up. I think you might be talented. She was like, I think it might actually just be talent. So take my class.
That's awesome.
And she made it all improv games for me. Like that was not the usual curriculum. She made it all
awesome.
improv. And she's the one I look back on some of my teachers and I still am like, those fucking assholes. A lot of them were assholes. It's because I also am angry because I'm like, none of them protected my brother and I never trusted any of them. You know, I never trusted a teacher in my life because I saw that none of them helped my brother. And I just was like, none of you are going to help me. I got good enough grades to get by. And then I was like, I don't need to interact with teachers. Fuck that. But this one teacher, she pulled me aside and then it was game on. And when I got to Rutgers, all I knew was like, my college, I didn't look at, I was like, does the college have an improv group? Nowadays, every college does because improv blew up in the 2000s.
Yeah.
But back then, like they didn't all have them. And Rutgers, I went and I auditioned for their improv group and I didn't get in. And then the second semester audition, didn't get in. Finally, my sophomore year, I got in and just was like able to express myself for the first time and was able to get some validation for the first time, really.
Yeah.
In high school, like I said, I did those musicals, and by my senior year, I was the lead. But I'm like,
You were the lead?
yeah. So it was I knew I liked being on stage, but I'm like, I don't think I need to like learn the choreography. Like I know that this is not all this can be. So improv was really the first thing where I was like, I get to do it. And then I also had this thing too, where I would play a lot of characters that were depressed or characters that were really angry, and I'd be getting big laughs, and I'm like, I'm just saying a thing that I just actually thought yesterday.
Yeah.
Like that's like a thought that I had that I thought was real fucked up. And now I'm playing a character who's saying it to another character and the crowd's cheering. And I was like, oh, other people do understand. And I'm finding ways to send that message where it's not so risky.
Yeah.
And then after my sophomore year of college, it was kind of the only thing that was making me happy. And like I said, college was when my depression started getting very dangerous. So I was like, I don't want to stop doing comedy because it's what I have.
Yeah.
Now, I should have gone and gotten treatment. I went to the Rutgers. They had like a psychiatry. You could go. I went one time, and I went in, and I was like, how do I get an appointment? She was like, when are you free? And I turned around and walked out. That was my sophomore year. I was too scared.
Yeah.
Because people used to, I mean, that was the thing that, again.
Talking to people and stuff like that. Yeah.
It was like growing up how I did, it was a tough enough vibe, especially seeing stuff with my brother that it took me years to unwrap the feeling of like, you can't give anybody a thing that they can use against you.
Yeah.
And I felt
or
like
show any weakness.
She can't show weakness.
Yeah.
And if people find out I'm in therapy, that's weakness and they have that on me. And I can't have it. And that was how we treated therapy for a long time.
It's the most normal thing now.
Now it's more, but well into my adult, up until like 10 years ago, it felt like people didn't talk about it. So yeah, then I went and I was like, I just don't want to stop. I never saw a show at UCB. I just Googled improv. I don't even know if it was Googled it. It was like
Sounds like a punk
Alta
club.
Vista,
Mm-hmm.
and it had a punk vibe. And a couple of the owners had punk backgrounds, and a bunch of the people participating had punk backgrounds. Bowie was in a band that I knew and that I legitimately, I mean, I had the Egghead 7-inch. I bought their album right when it came out. Egghead played backing music for this band called Kung Fu Monkeys, and I bought it because I legitimately, and I showed up. I was like, all right. And he was like an early mentor to me for my first few years.
Awesome.
And and then it was just never wanted to stop. And it's 23 years later, and only now am I starting to figure out, like, maybe I should slow down and figure some stuff out. Like, only now.
So you moved to New York at that time?
I lived in Jersey for the first 3.5 years that I would just take the train back and forth. And then I moved to Montclair. Montclair is a town in New Jersey that's like a lot of people who are going to live in the city someday, or a lot of people who are coming out of the city to raise their kids. Yeah. Montclair is this town that Colbert lives there now. That's a town that like people cross over. So I lived there for a year or two, and then I got a job in Los Angeles. Matt Besser, who is one of the owners of the UCB, he has a punk background. I'll never forget, dude. I go into UCB, and I was like this very shy kid. And it was a system that was like, I was in pretty early, but there were still like these people that I looked at as rock stars who had started a couple years before, let alone the guys who owned the place. And I walk in one day, and Jay Church was playing. And Jay Church is a band that I am obsessed with to this day. And I feel like that band doesn't get their due. And it gets me weirdly upset because they were kind of this companion band to Jawbreaker. And Jawbreaker always sort of overshadowed them a little bit. And Jay Church put out way too many records, and their quality of recordings was not consistent. And they would sometimes just fart out a split 7-inch that probably they could have like held off. And, you know, like they had that, but the good shit's great. And I walk in and Jay Church was playing. And I was like, nobody listens to Jay Church, like me and 4 of my friends. And I looked up in the booth and Besser was in there. And I was like, and he was kind of like an intimidating guy. And I was like, I'm so sorry to bother you. I was like, did you put this on? And he was like, yeah. I was like, this is Jay Church. He's like, you like Jay Church? So he liked me. Because right away he's like, dude. And Lance Hahn, similar to you. Dude, when I was on Friendster, I had put that one of my favorite bands was Jay Church. And Lance Hahn, who was Jay Church, reached out and was like, thanks so much for supporting my band. And I was like, wow, the fuck? Like, do you just find everyone on Friendster who likes your band? He's like, there's not that many. I can do that. And again, totally informed me with my career. And then, yeah, moved out to Los Angeles, lived out here for like 3 or 4 months in 2004, beginning of 2004. Turned 24 out here, but the comedy scene wasn't huge here yet. And UCB hadn't built another theater here yet. And there was comedy that was like my kind of comedy, but I was very green. And I was like, oh, I'm not going to be able to get on stage for a couple of years here. If I go back to New York after this job's up, I'll get a lot of stage time because I've already established myself. So I did that. Yeah. And then I moved to Queens, lived in Astoria 2 years.
Oh, they were there before, yeah.
Woodside for 6 or 7, Greenpoint for 2.
Damn.
Jackson Heights for 5.
We talked about Jackson Heights earlier.
That's
a lot of hardcore legends out of Queens, bro.
Yeah, I lived in the DMS neighborhood. They weren't around anymore. I looked it up, and I was like reading up on my neighborhood, and it was like DMS was born out of Jackson Heights, and I was like,
my God,
what?
Dude.
Talk about the hardcore guys who scared me. You want to talk about the hardcore guys who made me a pop punk kid? I was like, those dudes are scary guys.
It scared you into pop punk.
Scared me into Lookout. I'm like, I'm gonna go listen to the Mr. T Experience, man. I can't handle this shit. These guys are fucking scary, man. What's this Servotron record?
Push you into Lookout Records.
Yeah, they made me love. Yeah,
but Queens, man, a lot of me. Ramones, so many Nas, so many amazing artists out of Queens.
Yeah, and it's still Jackson Heights to this day. I feel so lucky I lived in that. That neighborhood is the most fucking amazingly diverse, strange, cool ass neighborhood. It's the best.
I lived on 169th back in the day.
In Queens?
Yeah, and Northern Boulevard. Is that Jackson Heights?
That's way deeper. That's like Corona.
With Gorilla Biscuits in 1988. That's
Corona Queens.
Yeah,
I live
there.
Just that you get to say shit like that and it's real. When I've spent my whole life with my nerdy punk friends saying shit like that.
It was me, Walter Schreifel, Civ, and Alan Cage all in one apartment. You know the story. You visited me. Yeah. And there was a Burger King. We called it Murder King. All the bands would stay with us and bleach their hair and all that shit. Yeah.
Was Gus Straight Edge.
That was Gus Straight Edge. Yeah, in the 80s. Damn.
So cool, man.
So were you nervous? But did you go to shows in New York once you later on? Were you focusing on comedy? Were you going to shows?
I was focused on comedy a lot, and then everything started to get really moving. And you know, I showed up in 2000, and I think Williamsburg was starting to become what it was.
Oh yeah.
But it was still pretty cool. Like it wasn't the Apple Store yet. Not that I judge it. Like neighborhoods change.
Yeah.
I want to get over any sense of like purity. And,
yeah.
But it was still like started going to like North 6. And then and then a thing happened to me that was really cool where I had met this kid and he gave me a CD from his band. He was dating a friend of mine at UCB. And I listened to it. It was pop punk and he was from Jersey. I was like, this is pretty good. And then somebody reaches out to me and is like, dude, there's this band coming out of New Brunswick right now and they're about to fucking take over pop punk. They're awesome. And I was like, who are they? And he's like, the Ergs. I don't know if you know the Ergs.
No.
Dude.
And that's what CD you got? Yeah.
The Ergs, if you like the Descendants, the Ergs worship at the altar of SST and the Descendants. They had just put out this album called Dork Rock Cork Rod. They're 3 nerdy guys.
Okay.
And I was like, I know those guys. They used to hang out at UCB because one of them dated my friend Dinah.
Wow.
I was like, Joe Erg changed my fucking tire one night when it popped. I was like, the Ergs are popping off. And they were playing the Knitting Factory when it was still in Manhattan.
Great spot.
Great spot. And I went to the show. I was like, I'll go check out these Jersey dudes. I haven't been to shows in a while, man. I kind of had my head up my ass with comedy, but I was starting to come out of that. That nice thing as an artist where I'm like, now I feel like I'm starting to find my footing, and you realize you got to find your inspiration outside of the thing you do.
Totally.
Like, you're not going to write great songs if all you do is listen to music obsessively all that. You got to go live some life, you know?
That's why Chappelle only hangs out with musicians and not comedians.
I bet.
Yeah.
I bet. So I went and saw the Erg show, and the first chord hits, and half of New Brunswick jumped off the fucking stage. I was like, I know all these dudes.
Yeah.
It's like, that's my friend Fid. I knew Fid back in the day. Like all these dudes I knew from Jersey, or like, and not even that I knew them because I was so shy, but where I was like, I recognize all these people. And that's when I realized that like there had been a resurgence in the type of shit that I liked, and I started diving in.
Yeah.
And that led to there was some DIY spaces in New York, like Death by Audio, Shea Stadium, which was the spot in Bushwick where you tell people I'm doing a show at Shea Stadium. They all thought they were like, what? It's like, no, not Citi Field.
Yeah.
These guys named it after that.
What year was
Kent
that?
Street, Glasslands. That was
After 2003
the Ergs. No, the Ergs was probably like Dork Rock probably came out like 2006, 7,
Wow.
8.
I was gone by then. We were out in
Yeah.
New York by then, man.
That's right.
And then I started my
First
show in
moved out here.
2009, and we went to Public Access 2011, and it became a cool thing because there was this thriving DIY scene all over Brooklyn, and we became those guys' TV show, and that was a
That's
point of pride
cool.
for me. And then when I got my TV show on cable, I hate to say it, but there's a part
It
of
was
me.
on Fusion or Fuse?
It was on Fusion for 2 seasons,
Yeah.
which is a tiny network. Then it was on True TV.
Yeah.
But dude, I hate to even think this way because I know you're just a guy and I'm in your kitchen. But it's the type of thought where I'm like, I think you would be proud of me for this. And I sometimes do have that thought of like, I bet Toby would be proud of the guy who said hi to me at the show.
Of course.
I used my cable show to go and get a bunch of my fucking bands that were like heroes of mine in high school on TV.
It's amazing.
I got,
Bootstraps.
dude,
Exactly.
Pull 'em up.
Bootstraps.
but like,
There's one I want to.
oh yeah, who is it?
Pull it up. Give him the mic. Give him the mic.
It's a deep cut
Okay.
that you had on there.
Uh-oh,
Let's
here
talk
we
You ready
go.
for this one?
Yeah.
Is this Nardwar shit? Whatever. It is.
It's not Nardwar, but no, it's Adam and his package.
That's the name I was gonna. Do you know Adam?
Adam is
Adam and
package.
his package. That's
Now
a deep cut.
Now you can tell when I'm talking about I liked the funny bands in my
Yes.
high school era. I saw that dude all over Jersey and in so many basements. Adam and his package is a big part of why I wanted to do comedy.
Really?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And I got
'cause-
him on TV in 2016, which you know as a
Yeah.
fan. Clearly you like him. That's a miracle. He was
Okay.
this dude. He did he programmed a sequencer.
Okay.
So it's all sort of electronic stuff. I think a lot of the nerdcore rap stuff owes a lot to Adam.
For
I think
sure.
a lot of those guys
For
cite
sure.
him. But then he was in a band in Philly called Fracture,
Okay. I remember that name.
and they were that song Happy Birthday Ralph is about that guy Ralph from the band. He was friends with all those Philly guys, Ink and Dagger, those
Okay.
that era of Philly stuff. And he used to come through Jersey. He'd play a guitar, but there'd be this electronic music that he programmed, and he'd have songs about meatballs. He has a song you would fucking love called Punk Rock Academy.
Oh, Punk Rock
Okay.
Academy. That's
Dude.
that's like his biggest.
The
Okay.
premise,
Like his
the whole
biggest one.
premise of the song is just like, why didn't we just start a high school just for the punks?
Yeah.
We all were picked on and hated. Why didn't we just have that?
So good.
And the lyrics are so witty and funny.
So funny.
And I
Then he's got some ones that are like, like with the shits of like, expressing like kind of like serious issues, but
Yeah.
he does it in such a
could sing that
funny
whole
way.
song start to finish right now.
yeah.
Right now.
Didn't he perform Punk Rock Academy
He
on your
performed
show?
Punk Rock Academy on the show because all I could think about was I saw this guy in a basement in Wayne and a VFW hall in Gillette, New Jersey in like 1996, and he's part of why I'm doing this.
Wow.
And I reached out to him. I was like, I got his email from a mutual friend. I was like, I know you don't play anymore. It would be an honor to give you your first TV show appearance because I think you should have been on TV in 96.
Yeah.
That guy
awesome.
famously, he
He became a teacher.
became a teacher in Philly. Great
Yeah.
dude. Great guy. To this
Like
day.
like a science
He
teacher.
also
I
like
think.
his shit was really weird and electronic, and MRR was like, we won't review it. It's not punk, and like they pulled that card, and then that just made us all love him more.
Maximum Rock and Roll.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Maximum Rock and
Wow.
Roll was
But
like, we
meanwhile,
won't
like
cover
he
it.
was punk as fuck.
He was the punkest fucking
Like,
dude ever.
So
Yeah.
punk.
He's doing
And it's
the
a deep
weirdest
cut.
shit anybody's ever seen in basement, dude. Just like I was
Ahead of
fighting.
his time with that style, right? That's,
Yeah. Well, yeah. For sure. Like if he came out now,
Dude.
like
He'd be at Coachella, right? This
Oh,
he'd be at
weekend.
Coachella.
He would have blown up.
He
Yeah.
would have blown up.
Kids would have like
And he would
kids
just
who
come out
like
just him with a
Bandcamp
guitar and then,
kids and
Yeah.
the kids who found shit through Bandcamp, like that whole
SoundCloud, that
Tumblr
weird shit.
kids.
Yeah.
They all would have loved him. He was so ahead of his time. But dude, this song, I was fighting the mold in the bowl with my pee when a thought popped into my brain. If all of us hated high school so much, why was nothing ever changed? So I called Brian up with my plan that's red hot. Let's start a private institution in the name of punk rock. We'll get our government funding and our own private road and 666 as our radio show
Yeah.
code. I had a dream when I was in high school that I attended the Punk Rock Academy. I had a dream when I was in high school. I attended the Punk Rock Academy and no one made fun of me.
Dude,
Wow.
And it just goes from there.
That's
I could
awesome.
do the rest, but why bother? It's,
I'm about to put that song in this episode.
oh, it's
Oh
so
yeah,
good.
you got. I mean, it may be very different. I don't know what the New York hardcore cats would.
I think you'll appreciate
Ever.
it.
You'll
But do-
appreciate it.
I got
Yeah,
Adam
for
and his
sure.
package on. Less Than Jake, my favorite band in high school, called them up. Please play my show. I got They Might Be Giants on. That was a pretty big
Wow,
one for me at a
that's
certain
big.
era. I got who were some of the other like high school heroes? I got the Ergs to reunite. They had broken up. They're now reunited. They reunite. The first time they played together again was on my show,
It's
and it was funny
amazing.
because Mikey Erg wound up being the drummer in my house band on my show. So he's like a friend of mine. But I sent them all an email. I was like, guys, I'm not going to Mikey on this because I know it's sensitive and you guys had a breakup. But for all three of you, I was like, everyone asks you. I know you hate it. You've all played my show. Joe Erg was in a band, Nightbirds, that put out stuff on Fat.
Okay.
Really good. Jeff Erg was in Black Wine. Like they all did. Mikey did solo shit. I was like, I won't forgive myself if I don't at least try because you guys meant so much to me. And you guys kind of brought me back to loving music and like brought Jersey pride with
Yeah.
it. I will
That's
not
amazing.
forgive myself. And they were like, all right, for you, we'll do it. And then another guy, because another New York hip hop guy who's huge for me when you talk about guys who are weird and funny, art, like the art shit. I had Cool Keith play my show.
Ooh, I knew you were gonna say that.
Dude, Cool Keith came and
He's
played.
amazing.
He played Blue Flowers on my show.
Wow.
And that was,
Flowers.
dude,
Damn.
Cool Keith playing Blue Flowers for a bunch of alternative comedy fans.
Dude, we chill with him hard in the Warped Tour. He'd wear
Dude.
super big jean shorts
And he's not
with
faking
cowboy
it.
boots.
There's all that
Bro.
debate about like, is he really
yeah.
as weird as he pretends to be?
Crazy.
You and I can both vouch.
He-
That dude's weird in the best way, but
Legit.
it's real.
Legit. You know what's funny? One day I saw him trying to walk up this grass hill behind the venue, and he kept slipping in his
With
cowboy
this-
boots. I came over and I helped him up the hill. He's like,
Man.
"Thanks, man."
He played my show.
He's
He-
hard.
Dude, Dr. Octagon,
Yes.
loved
Yeah.
it. Everybody
Yeah.
loves Dr. Octagon. I was a
Oh,
big
yeah.
Sex Style fan.
Oh yeah, Sex Styles.
I'll also say,
that's
'cause
right.
I went through some addiction stuff, and I've been sober for many, many years now.
How many years now?
I was straight edge from up until my senior high school. I drank
shit.
until my junior year of college, and then I quit because I went that. It was that. But I saw a lot of my family. So since my senior year of high school, so since I was like 22 years now,
Wow, man.
Nice.
felt
Awesome,
had
dude.
some times where I messed up and have some jokes about one time where a friend convinced me to try Molly, and it led to a real bad summer. But by and large, I've been able to stay strong. But dude, like
Summer.
Cool Keith, Sex Style, that album, I'm like, everybody thinks that's just an album that's like gross sex songs. I'm like, no, that's an album about a man who suffers from an addiction, who flees New York to try to get away from it, and it gets even worse in LA. That album is fucking dark and layered.
I didn't even know that. I saw him performing at that show.
I
every night
love
at
that
Warped Tour.
album,
Yeah.
man. And he played my show, and he was so weird. I told everyone, because not everybody knew him. I was like, this dude's the fucking best. But you can see, I'm grabbing like things I loved in 1996, 98, and putting it on in 2016, 17 on cable TV, and I was proud of it.
Yeah.
And the network didn't want music on the show. I was like, fuck off. We're having music. They're like, music gets bad ratings. I'm like, don't care. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Had Ted Leo on the show. That was a big one for an Essex County, Jersey
Yeah.
guy, you know?
Yeah, he's an awesome voice.
Dude,
And
Cool
great
Keith.
songwriter.
after the episode, there was this bar we used to hang out at. And the crew, people drink. I don't judge. I don't drink. We go. Cool Keith's at the bar. I did not expect that. Usually, the guests and the musicians would leave. He's there. I walk in, and as I walk in, I had even gotten some people were like, you got to get to the bar quick because, like, none of us can figure out even really how to talk to this dude. I was like, I'm on it. I'm on it. I walk in. People are, like, looking my way. Like, we're over. And I sit down next to him. He doesn't say, like, good show. He doesn't say, thanks for having me. He looks right at me. First words out of his mouth. He's like, Chris, don't you think it's weird that we only dye eggs and hide them and find them for Easter? That's fun. We should be doing that for more holidays. I was like, yeah, man, you got a point. Why are we only doing that for Easter? And then I hung out with him and talked all night.
Wow.
It was the best. And then he fucking I'm thanked on a Cool Keith album. And that's like
That's
point of pride.
Wow, dude.
that's
That's so cool, like, to pay it forward and bring all these people on your show. Like,
I just knew. I was like, this show's not going to last forever because it's too weird.
yeah.
And if I have the chance to put on musicians, like we got to a point where our show was popular enough. We used to have to beg bands to come on. Then it started becoming a thing by the end. Publicists were pitching us. And I was like, no. We can maybe get, there was one band, a very, very popular indie band. I have my opinions on indie rock,
Okay.
you know? I think all punks do, right?
Oh, yeah.
I like a lot of it, but there's some of it where I'm like, are you really about it.
Yeah.
And these guys were big. And they said they would play our show. They asked us if they could play the show.
Wow.
And then the day of, they were like, we don't like this and this and that about the contract. And we were like, guys, we're like a tiny little show. Everyone has signed the contract. We don't have time. And they bailed day of.
Man.
And then
That's
this pop punk band from England named Martha, they were big fans of the show. I had done a festival in Scotland and I met them. And I knew they were touring somewhere in the United States. And I messaged them. I'm like, where are you guys right now? They're like, we're opening for Jeff Rosenstock in DC. And I was like, if you can get here in time, if you want to play the show. And they took their instruments. They had the day off. They jumped on an Amtrak train from DC, got there just in time.
Amazing.
Wow.
They played. It was. I'm not trying to slam them too hard because they listen. If you read a contract and you don't like it, I'm an artist too. Don't sign the contract. So I'm not mad at it. But it was Yola Tango, big band, and a band I still to this day will say I have a lot of respect for it. I'm not trying to talk shit about Yola Tango, but they got to play on Yola Tango's back line because we had already had it all set up from their rider. They were like, "This is the best equipment. This tiny pop punk band from England is like, holy shit, we're playing on some for real stuff." And they came in and saved us, and I was like, the punk kids dropped everything and jumped on an Amtrak from DC to get here in time, and like that's still. That's still what I love about it.
Yeah, man.
Even as I can't claim to be as much a part of it as I used to be, but I still am like, that's why I always loved this.
Yeah.
They're like,
It's still part of it because
you're
you
in a
brought it
jam and we like the show. We're on our way, dude.
Yeah.
Let's get here.
And you brought it back on your show. You know what I mean? That's awesome.
I knew. I was like, our show's weird. It's not clicking. Like, it's on a network with the Impractical Jokers, and I'm tight with Sal Vulcano in particular, but I always liked those guys, but they just dominate the whole network. It's not their fault. It's like, if you weren't the Impractical Jokers, the fan base of that network just wasn't going to love us, and I could feel the numbers were going down each week. I saw them. I was like, this thing's dying. I got to try to get every band I love on.
Is this one was on Fusion?
That was when it was on True TV.
By then, yeah.
Yeah.
Because the other show, you did like 158 episodes too. One the other show, right?
On public access, we did 100. And that's where we had Fucked Up on. That's where Damien.
Okay.
And dude,
Fucked Up's a great band.
We
too.
couldn't believe that they said yes, because that was like 2014 or 15.
Remember Fucked Up? We played with them a bunch, yeah.
And they were a big fucking deal in that scene at that point. We were like, one of our music bookers, Heidi, really, really, really loved them. She was like, I have to try. I was like, Fucked Up is not going to come play our public access show for free on a Wednesday at 11 p.m. at 59th Street and 11th Avenue. It's like, there's no way. They were like, yup, we're there.
Damn.
I couldn't believe it. And then they told us, they were like, you don't realize, like, we've never been able to be on American TV because our name.
Gotcha.
They all want to change our name and we're not into it. And I was like, oh. And they came and played, and the episode was bad comedically that night, but it was kind of great because I just turned around to them. Usually we'd have people, we did like the SNL model. You play one song early in the show, another song later. I just turned around to them. I was like, guys, this episode's not going well. You just want to play more? And they were like, fuck yes. And it just became, the last like 20 minutes of the show is just an impromptu Fucked Up show. And of course, Damien.
Smashing himself.
Dude, his shirt's off instantly. There's a staircase running up the middle of the studio. He's climbing up the staircase and threatening to like jump off it onto people. People are carrying him on their shoulders. He found there was like an old orange traffic cone that somebody had left in the studio for some reason. He's yelling his lyrics through the traffic cone. There's like audience members and members of our crew all start taking their shirts. I'm like, you guys have jobs. Like, these crew guys are abandoning their jobs to take their shirts off and carry Damien around the studio. It was just fucking fun. Damn. So beautiful. So beautiful. And that was the era of public access. I didn't make a dime on it. I couldn't offer to pay them, but I'm like, if you want to have a super fun experience with an audience that will love you, I can offer you that.
How are you surviving then from that show? Or just...
So I came up at UCB and everybody started getting really successful out of UCB. And I hit a sad point around 2009. People started going like, how come, like my friend Bobby got on SNL, Bobby Moynihan. People are like, cool, you're the next guy up. I'm like, I'm feeling good. I'm like a big fish in this pond and a lot of eyes on this pond. My friend Zach gets The Office. People are like, oh, that's awesome. Zach's great too. You're next though, definitely, right? I'm like, yeah, I hope so. Then the Aubrey Plaza, who I taught in her level 3 improv class, gets Parkinson in recreation. I'm like, okay, this is someone I taught in a class. Okay, this is starting to feel. Okay, now I'm starting to feel a little bit like has the shit passed me by. And then I had this crazy thing happen where John Heater most famously known as Napoleon Dynamite. He was the
Oh
lead.
wow! I didn't even know those
He was the lead on a sitcom.
Incredible movie, man.
So there was a sitcom on Comedy Central. He was going to be the lead with Chris Parnell and Horatio Sands from SNL, produced by Will Ferrell and Adam McKay, 10 episodes.
Damn.
He dropped out with like a week to go. They auditioned 10 people. 2 people got callbacks. I got the show. So on like 4 days' notice, they're like, you're going to be the lead in a sitcom for 10 episodes.
Wow.
New York Times wrote an article about it, about like, here's this kid that if you know New York comedy, you've known him for a while. Dude, I had people coming up to me. I had 2 friends who wrote on the Colbert Report, came up to me and were like, we've never wanted to tell you this because it's sad. But like there have been days at the Colbert Report where the head writer has to tell us to get back to work because we sit and have conversations about how we wish you were into politics because it's insane. Like, it's so sad that you haven't had a job till now. Like, we talk about how sad it is that your career just took this. I had someone who was a student at UCB came up to me and was like, I'm going to keep trying comedy now because I was about to quit because I'm like, if that dude can't get a job, why the fuck I can't? Like, I was that guy. I was like that sad guy in the scene for people. And then I got the job.
What was the show called? It
was called Big Lake. And here's the best part. It's a fucking disaster. It was a disaster. And like while we were filming it, I was like, ooh, this is going to be nuts. Like the New York Times is like, this guy got this miracle chance. This dude who stars in movies dropped out. And they just went with this dude who everybody in New York comedy was like, give this guy the shot. And they actually did it. It's like Rudy. It's like comedy Rudy.
Yeah.
And then I'm here on the set and I'm like, there's a lot of charm to the idea that your movie star drops out with a week, but it's also maybe reflective that like things aren't going smooth. And like the head writer didn't like me. And I would be filming it and I'd be like, it's a whole, I mean, I could talk for hours about this. And then like they were like, it's not going to have a laugh track, and they shot it all. And then the director called me after we wrapped and was like, so I got bad news. Like they want a laugh track. And I'm like, okay. He's like, so I'm going to put a laugh track in. But he's like, when you film a show with a laugh track, you film for pauses for the laugh track. And we didn't do any of that because they told us there wouldn't be a laugh track. So he's like,
you film over everything?
He's like, I don't know how I'm going to do it. So you would watch this show. And I would maintain that the scripts were actually okay. But you'd watch the show, and it was the weirdest feeling show because it would just be like someone would say a thing, and it would be like, and then the actors would just move on. And it was like it didn't feel right. Nothing about the show felt good. So I'm like, man, there's all this hype, and I had this crazy summer where I was single at the time, all this buzz. They told me it was this really insane thing Tyler Perry invented called a 1090, which in TV it's like, we're not going to do a pilot, we're going to do 10 episodes. And a few production companies team up to fund it. But if we pick it up, it gets picked up for 90 episodes immediately. Man. And then it can go to syndication. And Tyler Perry has had a few shows, I think on like TBS, that did this. Okay. And they go, if this show gets picked up, you're going to make $2.2 million the day it gets picked up. They told me that.
Holy
I was like,
shit.
Fuck, man. So I got all these people going, the New York Times is writing profiles on you. I'm single. All of a sudden, girls are like messaging me on Facebook back then. I was like, this doesn't fucking happen. Now, keep in mind, I lived in a room in Woodside, Queens with a guy I did improv with in college in a room with no closet. That was my life. Clothes piled on the floor. My bed was the top half of a loft bed that I just put on the floor. It was pathetic. Wow. My friend of mine saw it. He's like, you sleep in a fucking dog bed. He's like, dude, this is sad. Oh. So that show came out, and I had a feeling it was going to go bad. The reviews creamed me. Like, blamed me. And I get it. I wasn't great on the show, but I'm also like, I stepped in last minute. I didn't write it. I didn't produce it. I didn't stick the laugh track on it. There's a lot. I'm the public face of it. And I read some reviews that were fair, and then I read some where I was just like, man, this is just people who need clicks being mean.
Totally.
And I could feel it. And it didn't hurt me that much. And I tell you, I had this very distinct feeling where I was like, if I ever take it on the chin this hard again, it's got to be for something I actually believe in. So my agents at the time were like, let's get you out to Los Angeles because even though this bombed, you're a sitcom guy now. So in pilot season, we're going to be able to get you auditions for every show in pilot season. That's how it works.
Wow.
I was like, I had been doing the Chris Gethard show at UCB, and we were doing fucked up. We were doing shows where it would be like everybody put on a diaper. We're going to weigh the diapers at the end, and whoever pissed the most wins. Like, we're going to do a show where I bring in a jiu-jitsu black belt who's going to judo throw me so hard that the audience is yelling at him to stop. Like, that was my sense of humor at the time. This crazy shit. Yeah. It's really crazy, fucking weird, uncomfortable. We had a show called The Night of Zero Laughs, where it was if anyone in the audience laughs, you have to leave the show you paid for. It's going to be the most intentionally unfunny comedy show of all time. And if you leave, we have referees who blow whistles and kick you out. Like, I was doing these weird experiments. Not all of them went great, but I was like, that's what I love. And I was like, I don't want to go to LA. I want to do that show. And right then I met a friend of mine who was like, I work at the public access station. He's like, that show you do once a month? That would be a great public access show. And I was like, fuck yeah. Because all I could think of was my older brother running up our basement steps being like, I just found this thing on UHF. Come right now. Come watch UHF with me. Yeah. And he'd show me some bizarre shit on like those, you know, the old TVs where you have to dial up way up high.
Yeah.
We'd be like, I just found this thing on Univision. It's fucking nuts. Come watch this span. And we wouldn't know what was going on. And we'd be like, I have no idea what they're saying, but this is brilliant. All I could think of was like, I got to make that. If I could make the TV version of that show I do at UCB that I love, that's the show my brother would have showed me. So if the only way I can make it is public access, that's what I'm doing. And then it's a long roundabout answer to say the way I funded it was I had those 10 episodes of that sitcom.
Oh, yeah.
And for 3 more years, I lived in a room in Woodside with clothes on the floor, sleeping in a dog bed with my friend who I did improv with in college. Because I was like, all that money, that's more money than I've ever made in my life, the 10 episodes of that show. But in my mind, I go, that doesn't exist.
Smart.
I'm not getting a better apartment. I'm not getting anything fancy. I'm not changing my lifestyle. That money
saved it
and used it so that I could survive while I went and performed on public access for free for like 5 years.
Damn.
And then I would find some other jobs. There were a couple times where I almost ran out of money and had to stop. And then a job would come through. And then eventually we sold a pilot to Comedy Central. They passed, did public access another year. That was hard. That was painful.
And you're auditioning for stuff too, because you're in some movies
auditioning,
too.
Picking up gigs here and there, starting to tour a little bit, like figuring out how to cobble together a career.
You're in The Dictator?
That's a nuts story too. I was cut from The Dictator. I'm pictured in the background of The Dictator.
Wow.
I spent a night on the set of. So Sacha Baron Cohen, he famously stays in character.
I heard.
And I gotta say, I admire him greatly. I wish I didn't hang out with him on a night where he was pretending to be the evil, cruel, ruthless dictator of a small country, because he stayed in character
all night,
the whole time,
Damn.
treating everyone on the set as if he was the dictator of an Eastern European nation.
Wow.
And I was like, this is fucking nuts. This is nuts, man. This is wild. Like,
he was intense.
I'm not judging him. I don't know if he's like that every day, but with me, I was like, this was intense. So,
Also, the movie Heat, one of my favorite funny comedies.
A friend of mine from my college improv group wrote that.
With Rappaport, Bill Burr, Sandra. Yeah. It's a great fucking movie, man.
Yeah, I try to hit on Sandra Bullock on a dance floor in that movie, and Melissa McCarthy beats me up.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
That was you.
Yeah.
That's crazy. And then the other guys, too?
Yeah, that was where Adam McKay and Will Ferrell first found me. That's why they had me audition for the TV show, because I had a tiny little part in the other guys. Yeah. Damn. So I was one of those New York comedy actors picking stuff up here and there. Yeah,
you wrote something for SNL too?
I was a guest writer there for 2 weeks, and then they didn't hire me. I kind of auditioned for them. I came so close. Almost got hired for Fallon's original writing staff. This was me in New York. People were like, you come so close to all this stuff where people are like, you writing for SNL makes total sense.
This is a random one. You writer for Daryl Strawberry Show?
Oh, that was a show I made up that I couldn't do today. And that I promise, it's not, by modern day standards, it sounds very bad. It was actually a very funny, good-hearted show. The premise of that show, I did a show at UCB where the premise was that Daryl Strawberry was doing an autobiographical one-man show, but he got into a car accident on the way to the theater, and I was the understudy. So I had to step in and perform Daryl Strawberry's one-man show. And it was based on his real autobiography. And then I wrote a bunch of insane bits. I did not put on blackface. I promise. I did not do a funny voice. The premise of the show was, here's this overwhelmed nerd trying to do this legendarily divisive professional athlete's one-man show. Probably wouldn't stage it today, but I can tell you, even the worst, whatever you're thinking in your head, it was not as bad. It was actually a pretty good-hearted show that was on his side.
And you're a big Conan O'Brien fan?
Yeah, huge Conan fan.
You've been on there a couple times,
right? The first acting work I ever got. I was so young at UCB. I was 20 years old at UCB, but I was a baby face, so I looked like a high school kid. So a lot of my first paid comedy work was they'd have me come play a high school student in sketches on Conan.
Wow.
And that was very cool.
Mike, I forget his last name, glasses.
Mike Coleman?
Yeah.
He was
UCB, and he would do a lot of bit parts.
Oh, Michael Delaney.
That's it.
See, Michael Delaney was one of my teachers. He was my mentor. He
okay.
did a ton of that. Yeah.
This is where
Connection comes.
connection comes. When I used to work for a jeweler on 23rd Street when I would leave college on the weekends.
You're close to the mic, Rush. You have a soft voice.
When we first started H2O, I would come in. I went to SUNY New Paltz. I was doing a metals degree there. I worked for a jeweler. We'd carve wax models on 23rd Street and 6th. And Mike and his
Linda. Yeah. This is an amazingly small world.
They would work in this room
Yeah.
as well. Joel was the jeweler, and I was his main guy. And he's like, I'm going to teach Mike and his
Yeah, because I
his wife
remember
wants
he
to-
did some of that.
to learn how to do this.
Yeah,
And,
and then he was doing improv before UCB in New York, and it was like a non-existent thing. He was one of the first people, even before they showed up.
yeah.
Yeah.
So and when I saw him on Conan, I was like, oh no shit, this is awesome.
Yeah.
Because I used to work
Yeah,
with
he was
this
my
guy.
teacher and mentor. I performed with him hundreds of times.
Yeah,
Great
that's-
guy. Great guy.
Earlier, I was going to be like, so who was in the UCB when
Yeah,
when
he
you
was he was like the teacher that taught my whole generation.
were
Yeah.
You know him, Rusty?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Sweetheart.
Did you know Billy as well? His friend, bigger guy that he performed with? He was around a lot back then, too.
I guarantee we
Because Billy has a lot of stories about showing up in New York in the mid-'90s, and he would drink at some bar.
Zigzag.
Johnny Ramone
Probably.
always drank there.
Oh, yeah.
Zigzag.
And
His
My
brother
brother worked there.
His brother was a
On
bartender.
23rd Street,
And he had all these.
Zigzag.
He's like, I used to drink with Johnny Ramone, and I was like, that's amazing. And he's like,
And-
it wasn't always amazing.
No.
He was like, Johnny Ramone was an angry dude.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. My brother worked
Republican.
at that bar, Zigzag on 23rd
That's so
Street.
funny. Yeah.
And
Holy shit.
And Blondie would always roll in there too.
It's-
And they would sit next to each other and curmudgeon about, New York kind of fucking sucks now.
Yeah, he said. Billy said it was a lot of that.
Yeah.
That's such a small world.
That's funny because we worked on half a block away.
Yes.
Toby's brother Todd was a bartender, so I'd go do my jewelry work with Joel, and then usually around midnight or 1, we would roll over to Zigzag, say, hey, what's up, Todd? Shoot the shit, and occasionally see Johnny Ramone there.
And that's so wild.
It's crazy.
And would you just pray he
small-
didn't realize you guys were a band, so you didn't have to hear like his opinions on modern New York punk?
Or what is punk?
Yeah.
Some of the things that we would hear, and Todd would hear, and Todd would be like, man, he's like a right wing.
I know.
It was nuts.
Insane.
I mean,
Wait,
that
wait, wait.
documentary, it all came out.
Yeah, exactly.
When
This
he
is-
was like, I'm basically just a T-shirt salesman. I'm like, no. Like, you wrote songs that actually restructured my DNA. Like,
Yeah.
I can't hear you say you just sell T-shirts. Like, you changed my entire approach to life. Please don't say it just comes down to selling T-shirts.
When
You
he
can't.
When he thanked George Bush on the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame right after Joey died, that killed me, man.
Oh,
And the KKK took my baby away. That song's about
him.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
crazy when you
Yeah.
find those things out later on in life. You're like, because you only get it when you're young.
Now, since I have you guys here, because I've been talking about myself so much, and I know that's right, I'm the guest, but
Yeah.
who are like the New York punk heroes that you guys got to meet where you're like, they were everything I wanted them to be? Because you are that for me right now.
Thank you, man.
That was I met you in the 90s and you were cool, and you're cool today.
Thank you. I mean, Joey Ramone was always sweet.
Yeah.
He'd
a
always give
sweetheart.
you stop and talk to you for a second. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, he was also wonderful. I mean, for me, Ian Mackay is somebody
yeah.
that
I
changed
got
my
to do a
life.
comedy show with Ian Mackay once.
Really?
It was the best.
He didn't do comedy though, did he?
Yeah,
There's-
not Portlandia or.
No, there was a show at UCB called ASCAT, which was the Sunday
Yeah,
night show.
it's in here. Yeah, ask
That
him,
was
yeah.
the big Sunday night. That was the big show at UCB.
Yeah.
And that was a show that was basically like the pickup basketball of the best improvisers in New York. So on any given Sunday, it would be like Amy Poehler was always there when she was on SNL.
This is the one that Robin Williams showed up to. I read your whole
Robin
story.
Williams. I got
You
to do
did the
improv with
story.
Robin Williams one night
Yes,
at that
okay,
show. Yeah,
right.
that was that type of show. A guy like Robin Williams would drop in sometimes, you know. But I mean, there were times that I was this guy in 2007, 8, 9, where it would be like the show on Sunday nights would be Amy Poehler, Seth Meyers, Jason Sudeikis, Jack McBrayer from 30 Rock, 3 writers from Conan, and Chris Gethard. And for years it would be that, and people would be like, "Yeah, Glazer,
Stack.
all those." You know Stack,
Yeah.
dude.
He's-
These were my improv heroes.
Stack.
Stack's the nicest human being. He's
He
a writer
is.
at Colbert now.
Yeah,
Best guy
the
ever.
biggest, and you can always tell when it's a Stack bit. 'Cause
Oh,
you're
yeah.
like the voice.
Also, the most
Yeah,
encyclopedic
appropriate.
fan of the Replacements that you will ever meet. Brian Stack, the comedy writer, knows more about the Replacements than
Yeah.
anyone I know. I once heard a song on WFMU that was a Replacements B-side, and I was like, "Where can I find it?" And the next time I saw him, he handed me 3 DVDs of like Replacements B-sides and live shows, and like 3 CDs, and then a DVD of them playing. I think Maxwell's in Hoboken. which was a big
Wow.
spot for me as well as a
Yeah.
Jersey kid.
Yeah,
Hoboken.
Maxwell's was
I
awesome.
saw, dude,
Maxwell's.
Maxwell's was the best.
Saw Fugazi there, I think, once.
Yeah.
Dude, so Ian Mackay. So,
Tell us.
So UCB opened a new theater in the East Village. They wanted to do an ASCAT to launch it. Besser was a big punk fan. He was going to fly from LA to do the show, and he asked the booker, he's like, it would be a dream of mine, can you try to book Ian Mackay? And somehow they got him to say yes. So then Besser's flight, Besser and Ian Roberts, two of the owners, they were on a flight, and there was bad weather over the Midwest. The flight got grounded.
Okay.
So Amy Poehler comes up to me and she's like, listen, there's a bunch of us that like punk, but you grew up in it, right? And I was like, yeah. And she's like, I understand Ian Mackay's a big deal. I'm not trying to claim like she was totally ignorant. She's like, I get that he's a big deal, but she's like, you like know his stuff really well, right? I was like, Minor Threat in particular. Like Fugazi, sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Minor Threat in particular, though. I mean, I'm not lying when I tell you guys. As far as hardcore goes, I went and bought the Youth of Today 7-inch Gorilla Biscuits. I really tried. It was too much for me. The two hardcore records that I still love, that H2O, Minor Threat discography. Those were the two.
Oh, yeah.
The pop punk guy, you guys had actual melodies
We had
in
some
there.
melodies, yes.
I could get into it, you know?
Yeah.
Stood by. So she's like, any chance?
Maryland.
She's like, he's really nice, but he's also really reserved. Like, would you be down to just like sit with him in the green room?
She had met him already?
He had shown up really early.
Wow.
He's like right on,
Amy Poehler,
really
Ian
early.
Mackay hanging out,
Dude,
bro.
and Amy's like, can you just like hang with him and talk with him? Because I think you'll just like have more to talk about. And I got to sit in this green room and ask Ian Mackay every question I've ever wanted to ask him.
Really?
He told me some stories. He told me the whole story, everything I ever could have dreamed of hearing about when Fear played SNL and wrecked the
Yes.
place. Telling me stories about, like, I think he said he saw, I don't want to misquote it and start some punk legend. If I remember right, he said at one point, because he was like, the thing people don't realize is the security guards were chasing us all over 30 Rock for like a long time after the thing.
Wow.
And he said at one point he runs into this staircase, and I think he said he saw rabies smash a pumpkin on a security guard's head.
Okay.
And all the
I'll
DC
take
guys
that.
just were like, go the other fucking way, and ran away. He saw some legendary New York name.
Wow.
One of those names that as a Jersey kid, I just would hear
I'll go with
rabies
that
and be
story.
like, that sounds like a scary guy to me. These hardcore guys all have nicknames? What the fuck?
What's the real
Dude,
name?
he told me every fucking story I ever could have dreamed. I got to thank him because I ran a fanzine in high school, one of my early attempts at comedy, and Discord for some reason bought an ad. It was in our second issue. It wasn't
No way.
I made like 100 copies, and we sent one to Discord, and they bought an ad for like $20. And he was like,
That's so cool.
we used to do that. He's like, we used to, like, we'd get these little tiny fanzines, and we could tell it was high school kids. And we were like, we could give
Help
$20
fund it.
more to the bigger fanzines, or we could keep our rates with them the same and give $20 to some high school kid,
So
and maybe they'll make 2 more issues of this. You
so
know,
cool, dude.
he was so cool.
Damn.
And then he told stories from his life, and then we made up improv scenes off of him.
Okay, I was wondering what he was doing
Yeah.
and what he was just to tell
So he didn't have to be the funny guy. It was just you tell true story. The audience yells out a suggestion, you tell true stories, and then the rest of us do scenes based on those stories.
Was that recorded?
No.
Damn.
But that was a dream. That
That's
was a
a
dream,
dream,
show. And he was
dude.
so kind and so nice, and he told me so many cool fucking stories.
Oh yeah.
He's got great memory. and
You
dude,
probably
just-
you must have met him, right?
Oh yeah, many times.
Many
Been to
times.
Discord and heard the story. It's
Yeah.
amazing though. His
Yeah.
memory.
The back cover of Use Your Voice. We went to the Discord.
We
house.
did the
Oh,
photo
of
and
course.
stuff.
Yeah.
But like he's just like he's everything you want him to be, and expect him to be. And I met some people where I wish I didn't meet them. He's a person like I'm lucky to have enough to met him and spent time with him. You know what I'm saying? Such an impact on my life.
Yeah.
And he's the epitome of punk rock, man.
There was
Oh, yeah.
one when
DIY.
we went when we
Yes.
left public access and we got bought by a cable network. I was feeling very much like the spirit of the show is independence, and I'm selling it out. I know I'm selling it out right now, but also like I have to pay my rent, and I get to do it through this thing I love. And like, there's all these kids that have worked on the public access show for years, and I'm gonna be able to hire a lot of them, and they're gonna get their first jobs in TV production.
Yeah.
And there was a part of me I dreamed of. I was like, I should call Ian Mackay and ask him how to do this the right way. I should see, and I'd never tracked down his number.
And he would have just.
I bet he would have.
100%.
I bet he would have.
100%.
I did talk to Jeff Rosenstock, who I would argue is a little bit of a modern Ian Mackay to a lot of kids right now.
Who is? I'm not sure.
So Jeff was in a Long Island band called Bomb the Music Industry for a long time.
Okay.
And they used to do a lot of stuff that was similar, you know, like cheap shows, all ages shows.
Yeah.
Bring a T-shirt and we'll spray paint it over a stencil so you don't have to pay the full price on a T-shirt with a jacked up price. Like
Yeah.
a lot of that for years. And now he puts out solo materials, and I think to a current generation of punk kids, and especially to a lot of bands that have come up recently, he's a guy they look to, like some generations look to Ian. Not that he's had as much of a national impact, but as far as the ideals of it, Jeff Rosenstock has always done it the right way. And I did talk with him for a long time because it's funny, like the Fusion Network calls us. They're like, we got great news. We got a sponsorship for your show. And that was like a huge deal.
Yeah.
We're like, holy shit. That makes us look great. They go, yeah, AT&T wants to sponsor the music performances. And I'm like, I've spent years getting like actual punk DIY kids coming from the DIY spaces of New York, and now that's going to be the one part of the show with corporate branding on it. It was really messing my head up. And I was like, I don't know if I can say yes to that, because like there's like a Jersey band I love called Screaming Females, who are the most fucking cool. They're the best, but they also do it so for real. And I'm like, I would love to invite them back. They played twice for free on public access. I want to have them on the cable show.
Yeah.
But I can't. Can I, with a straight face, ask them to do the AT&T music stage? And Jeff talked me through it for like an hour about, here's how we're going to do it. Here's how you can do it the right way. Here's how you can make this happen.
And did you do it?
I did what he also was like, all the bands play festivals now.
Yeah.
The festivals are all corporate branded.
Totally.
It's not as big a
Barricades
deal. Like Red Bull sponsors a ton of shit that's actually cool now. Like, own it, go with it. Also, everyone who played your show in the old days knows that you have a right to try to make money and survive off of it.
Yeah.
And we all got your back. Like, don't worry about punk purists right now. I was like, thank you. I just needed to hear that. But I thought about, I should try to track down Ian's number. And
I'm sure
see.
we gave you amazing advice too and talked to you for a while about, you know what I mean? Like,
I hope I cross paths with that guy
you
again
will.
someday.
You'll
I
see him
hope
sometime.
so.
You ever perform in DC?
I do sometimes, but I don't know how to get in touch with him to
You just
invite
pull
him.
up. You can just go to the website. He has an email on there. Hit him up so you can
And
come
he just
through.
answers those emails from the
Yes.
website email address?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
I wish I knew it was that
Legit.
easy. I was
And you
just
can-
in D.C. a few months
You
ago.
can call Discord and he might even answer the phone during the week.
I did a short film a few years ago, and the filmmakers were very cool, and they wound up working on a project where they went to Discord House for something. I think a documentary type thing.
Oh, really?
And they were like, yeah, dude, Ian asked us what we were working on. We said we had just done a short with you. And he wound up talking about you for like half an hour about that show you guys did together. I was like, that's the fucking coolest thing in the world. Because I still listen to those Minor Threat songs when I'm bummed out.
Oh,
I
really?
still, if I need to just be instantly in a better mood, or like if my confidence is shot and I'm doubting myself, still to this day, Minor Threat will get my game face back on.
Just the whole record? No like go-to song or no?
I mean, Minor Threat itself.
Yeah.
Fucking like, you tell me that you like the taste. That one always.
Filler.
Filler.
So good.
I don't want to hear it. If I'm pissed off
Wanna
at
hear
somebody,
it.
all of them. And then I used to not listen as much. There's like the more musical ones on the end of the discography and the later 7 inches, but now all the ones fucking Salad Days with the chimes and shit. I used to
Oh,
skip
yeah.
that one when I was a younger and dumber
Guys
man.
Don't wear white.
Dude, yeah, dude, fucking-
So
We used to
good.
cover.
And
we
what's
used to
the-
cover Salad Days all the time.
Yeah, man.
Dude, Salad Days the best. And what's the fucking da-da-da, we'll steal your money, steal your show.
So good.
I still listen to all. I'm
yeah.
bad with the names of songs, but
There's no place like home.
nope. So where am I?
Where
Dude,
am
that's one of those songs that when I'm 15, I'm like, I don't even know what the fuck this means, but I'm all about
Oh,
it.
hell yeah.
There's no place like home, but where am I? Like, I can pretend I know what that means and feel cool for a week off of that
Oh,
shit.
hell yeah.
Love that shit.
And it
To
hits.
this day.
I love the Beautiful Anonymous podcast.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
It's such a cool thing where people would like, they tweet and send their phone numbers. They call you up on the phone. They don't say who they are. You talk to them. They can say
Yeah.
anything they want to you.
Yeah. Sometimes it's funny.
it
and
heavy?
sometimes it's funny and sometimes it's real heavy. And we don't really pre-produce it, so I never really know which way it's going to go.
You got some crazy phone calls and
Like the
How
one,
d- yeah.
the one we put out this week is
Yeah.
just a guy who really loves yo-yoing, and he was telling me what's up with yo-yos, and there's a whole scene, and here's who the best here's the guys who did
he's
yo-yo
calling to the pod, dude. It's
yo-yo
crazy.
routines that changed the game. Like we get ones like that, and then I've also had multiple calls from people who have like their kids have died, and they tell me what that's like, and I don't know what it's gonna. It's not like I walk in and they're like, "Here's who we picked today." It's legit. I tweet it out, and then 5-10 minutes later, I'm on the phone with somebody, and they tell me what's going on.
There's been some heavy ones, I'm sure. And
Some
crazy
very
ones.
heavy.
Yeah.
The show is more known for the heavy ones than the funny ones, which was a
And
strange.
you can't hang up.
I can't hang up. That's the one rule. They can't say their name. I can't hang up, and that's it. And I get some very raw, honest stuff because of that.
It must be so heavy too because you're not a psychologist. You're a comedian. You're a person.
My shrink listened to it and yelled at me. She's like, "You can't feel this pressure to try to be their shrink." Like you're not trained in it. You can't try to actually help anybody. She's like, it's really cool. You're letting people air out their stuff. You're giving it a platform. That's all it can be. You're not trained. She's like, there's a lot of rules and ethics that go into being a therapist. And like, you're going to fuck your own head up if you try to save all these callers. So she stepped in the early days on that. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Just to guide you kind of through it.
Yeah.
Like
to also kind of scold me and be like, hey, like people go to school for this to do it in a way that's responsible. Because you can give, if somebody's under mental duress, you can tell them the wrong thing and make it worse. You know?
Man.
I bet you guys must run into that
I get
too.
crazy DMs or like where sometimes I'll answer. I'll be talking to somebody all day for like 8 hours and trying to connect them to somebody in a Facebook group. And I've done that once before, and it's like 48 hours of talking to somebody, and it was heavy, man. But everything worked out. It's just because I respond. But some I see, I'm like, oh my god, if I could digest that today, respond to that, but I'll definitely get to it. Like I'm not gonna ignore it. You know, but it's like at the same time, I'm just a person. I'm not a psychologist or a doctor. I don't have all the answers. I'm not perfect, but I can I can do my best.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of responsibility.
And like, I can show you that as you did for me 30 years ago, like I can show you that someone's willing to take some time out of their day.
Yeah.
And that hopefully means a lot, but hopefully that's what you need. I've had a lot of moments like this where it's like, hopefully that's what you need. Like it's hard to reach out to anybody.
Yeah.
If you can reach out to a comedian who said some stuff you identify with, you can reach out to a doctor. And I'm telling you that they can help you more. I've had that conversation a lot in my life.
You've been in therapy most of your life?
At this point, yeah, like on and off for 20 years. Since 2007 on.
I just started this past year. Yeah, it's the first time in my family. Nobody else has gone to therapy before.
Yeah.
My brothers, my mom, no one. Like, you ever had therapy, Rusty?
Oh yeah.
It's that tough East Coast thing though, of like, we don't do that. That's why a lot of dads in my neighborhood, they would be at the bar all night. They did that.
Self-medicating.
Dad did that instead of therapy.
That's a therapy, yeah.
You know?
That's how they get it out.
Yeah.
It's heavy, man,
It's
right?
damaging.
I know the heaviest thing with therapy is you think you're making a breakthrough and you leave and you're like, I'm such a better person for what I'm doing right now. And, and I can see the world and not, not in a violent manner or something. Yeah. And then someone does something and instantly you're tested. The minute you say, I'm making progress, you're instantly tested.
Right.
In New York City, if you're in therapy and you're living in New York City, it's definitely, it will test you every block you walk.
It's also so interesting to hear that you guys are doing it too, because I've joked about it a bunch, but there's a lot of truth too to like the New York hardcore scene that you guys came out of. I could see it from the outside, not in the early days, but the tail end of it. And it was angry young kids. Mobilized angry young kids. And it was very inspiring.
Yeah.
But that anger, it's like, I just remember having that type of anger in myself. And it's like, you hit a point where you're like 29, 30, 31 years old. And it's like, I'm still having situations get sabotaged because I'm so angry.
Mm-hmm.
And I based a lot of my personality and a lot of my motivation on the anger.
Yeah.
How do I let it go and trust that I'm still going to be like a motivated person on the other side of it? You know, that was a big one for me.
Yeah. And for us, like, we didn't grow up in New York, but our band was born there. I moved there in 1988. You know what I mean? You soon followed me. And
Where did you guys grow up?
I was born in Massachusetts, and I lived in Rhode Island, then I lived in Maryland, where I met Rusty, and then I moved to New York by myself. But like
to move to New York in 1988,
it was crazy, dude.
That's crazy.
I moved to Flushing, Queens with Timmy
18,
Chunks.
not even. I think you were just 18, or
I moved to New York all by myself.
It was just the city was chaos.
I got literally dropped off at CBGB's, and that's where I was. It's crazy.
That's where you moved to New York. You got dropped off at CBGB's
because I was living with Timmy Chunks. I was about to move in with the singer from Token Entry because we were pen pals, sending letters for years.
Yeah,
I was a big fan. I met them in DC once with Rollins' band. Ended up going to New York on my own, and then like that, everything else happened after that. But like, you get that tough love in New York that like all those other bands took us under the wing, and they grew up a totally different way than we grew up. You know, it's like this tough love where it's like can't show
so
emotion.
You were with like New York street kids all of a sudden.
Yeah,
like kids from that damaged era of New York.
Yeah, all kinds of kids, man. Queens and all the skinheads at CBG was. I was like, this is fucking scary. Like we went to shows in DC, but it's a different energy in DC. You know what I mean? But
definitely. In the DC compared to the New York, I know for us, me and Toby's brother had a band, Roadside Pets, and we'd go to shows and we're thinking, oh yeah, we want to be part of this scene. And then you'd have a skinhead crew from one area would come in, and just start smashing everybody.
Just like you talked about going to Jersey shows and kids would come and just
so
wreck
there would
everything.
be some
Bergen
shows
County
where
Youth Crew. And I look back, I realized those kids, I bet didn't even, I think they just wanted to put on hoodies and fight.
Yeah.
I bet they didn't
And
even
that's-
listen to much of the music.
Mm.
I had a friend who told me, this other actor, Diedrich Bader, who people will, if you Google his name, you'll be like, oh, he's one of the guys on the Drew Carey show. And he was at all those DC shows. He like grew up going to Minor Threat shows.
Wow.
And he told me he was
Wilson
like, it-
Center and whatnot.
he
That's
he
cool.
told me he was like, it started to get bad when these Marines used to realize they could go there and like
From
fight,
Virginia and
fight
stuff like-
kids. He was like,
Yeah.
guys would come from the military bases and be like, oh, we can fight and not get in trouble here. And he was like, that's when it kind of got tense and a
That's
lot
when
of
it
people
started.
left.
Damn.
And that would have been like right.
Did you guys see Minor Threat coming up?
I see
Nah.
Embrace. You saw Fugazi's like
Yeah.
first or second
Yeah.
show. They handed out
Oh.
lyric sheets. It was
They-
beautiful.
We
Oh.
Remember that, Russ?
Yeah, we started going to those shows in, it was 84, I believe.
84, yeah, in DC. Yeah.
That's so
And
cool.
The 83, 82, 83.
Just
is
missed
when-
Minor Threat though, man. Yeah.
Because
We
they
just
weren't
missed
around
them.
all that long at the end
No,
of the
they
day,
weren't.
right?
Such a
Nah.
big impact though.
But did you guys see Bad Brains and all that?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
of course.
That's-
Everyone
When
I've ever
Against
talked to
I
who came
came
up
out.
in DC, I always want to talk about Minor Threat. And at some point, they're always like,
What about the
we can talk
Bad
about Minor Threat, but Bad Brains was like,
The-
Yeah.
the
Brains?
pinnacle.
HR looked like he could lift the world.
Yeah.
And he's a little guy.
Yeah.
And we saw him at the Marble Bar
Yeah.
and skinheads destroying people. And you're like, you know what? Bad Brains are playing. We don't give a fuck. We're going to fuck up your crew. Because we started rolling deep because we had all the skater crew like Rob
Yeah.
and all. So we had a few people who actually would have your back. And we're like, no, it's not your pit. We're going to go
Yeah.
to. And HR would command, like
Incredible,
that
man.
room.
Yeah.
he was
It's magical.
That's awesome.
You ever
he
meet him?
was,
No,
Uh,
no.
interesting.
A fan from afar.
Yeah.
I don't
Interesting
even know.
character.
I'd freeze up.
We have a mutual friend, Robbie Hoffman.
Oh,
She was on my podcast.
she
I
was
met her
on
through
not too
Chappelle.
long ago, right?
She's
And Robbie's starting to really blow up, I think, in LA,
Amazing,
right?
amazing.
Starting to take
Spoke
doing
so
clubs and all
highly.
shows now.
gave you so much props and love and like her time
Dude.
with you and
We had, so the Gethard show got to cable, and I tried to hire everybody who'd been working on it. But then a very cool thing happened where, like, I managed to hire some friends. Now that we had a budget, and like one of our writers got hired to SNL, one of our writers got hired away by Fallon, and that was a point of pride for me. Of like, good, the big shows are noticing. They're hiring
Yeah,
our writers. That's
totally,
fucking cool.
yeah.
And we needed a writer, and there was one stretch where we lost 2 writers who were women, and we started taking submissions, and the best one by far, I get it, and we don't read the names because I didn't want to like show favoritism to friends potentially.
yeah.
So I'm like, this one, because I was like, I'm gonna read every single packet. There were, I think, 400,
Jeez.
but I was like, I know for a fact I've written packets that didn't get read. I'm not doing that to other artists. I'm reading every single one.
Yeah.
400 packets. I tell you this one, I go, this is the best one by far. Why does it have to be by some dude named Robbie Hoffman? Like, we just lost 2 writers who are women. I'm not trying to have all dudes in the writer's room. Not
Yeah.
because I'm like trying to be overly woke, but because I actually believed like you can't just be a whole bunch of white dudes.
Yeah.
It's not going to be like, I know what that perspective is. I need other people.
Yeah.
And then I Google, and we only had 1 or 2 mutual friends who were like Canadian comics. I was like, who is this person? I find out you're like a non-binary who's raised Hasidic, and and you had the best packet.
Yo, she's so incredible, man.
She got the most amazing life story I've ever heard.
That's-
And on top of it, it's like so fun. Robbie's a person who's so funny, but is so mean to me that generally when we run into each other, within like 3 minutes, I'll have to be like, Robbie, you're hilarious. It's hurting my feelings. We got to have an honest conversation now. And she'll do it with me. She doesn't do it with everybody, but she can crush you with bits.
She's really look her up. She's incredible.
Oh my
man.
God,
She's-
one of the best.
I saw her perform with Chappelle, and I was like, "Dude, you remind me of the female Rappaport. Like, there's something about your energy.
Nonstop.
She's incredible, man.
Relentlessly funny and confident and
Doing really good
so
right now too. I'm
Yeah.
stoked, really stoked for her.
Yeah, and I was like hired Robbie had been writing mostly like kids television in Canada and then had moved out to LA. And I think our show was the first like pure comedy writing job Robbie had. And now Robbie's starting to blow up and I'm so psyched. So psyched.
Yeah.
There's a bunch. Do you know Will Miles? Will Miles moved out here a year ago. He was on our writing staff. So fucking funny. He just had a kid, so I haven't spoken to him. He's probably on the scene a little less, but yeah, our writer Julio Torres, who was on, he had his own HBO, and Anna Fabrega. They had Los Spookies on HBO. They were two of my writers. Joe Firestone is like a very beloved alt comic in New York. Like my writer's room was sick. It was sick. I got to hire so many of the best people. And then, Drew and Noah and JD and Greg, like all these guys who were there from the start. Just great people.
I saw that you have the other podcast too in New Jersey.
Yeah. So that I mentioned. So my friend Mike D.
New Jersey is the world podcast.
So Mike D was the guy who threw the first punk show I ever went to in the basement of the church. Bonaduce was the guy who his backyard was where Less Than Jake played in 1990.
So the pod's with them?
94. So they went to Rutgers. My brother went to LaSalle. So I got to Rutgers and linked up, and his friends became my friends.
That's cool.
And me and my brother, Irish brothers. So there's times where we've like battled, where he's like, "Why'd you steal my friend?" I'm like, "I didn't. I just went to the same college as them, and I knew them. We're friends now. It's fine." But yeah, like I was doing some live streaming stuff during the pandemic, and I had Mike on actually to tell that story about when he saw the guy in Port Authority ripping his teeth out.
Yeah,
it was so fun. We were all bored during the pandemic, so now we do a podcast that's just all about our love of New Jersey. And what's really cool? We do all sorts of stuff with it. Some that's like nostalgia, some that's history, some that, all food reviews, all this Jersey stuff. But we also do a thing where we interview small business owners around the state.
Oh, that's cool.
It is fucking astounding how no matter who you talk to, if they're running a cool business in New Jersey right now, they came up going to shows in New Brunswick and Asbury Park.
Wow.
Awesome.
It's like all punk. And then like people who run restaurants and they're like, "Oh yeah, no, I was at this show and that show." Like people who run, it's not like I'm finding people who are running like an anarchist bookstore. It's like you own a restaurant, you own a furniture, like a guy who in Asbury Park, he like goes and he finds furniture at yard sales and then like touches it up and resells it. Punk guy. I didn't know before.
Awesome.
It's like everyone doing something cool in New Jersey. It goes back to New Brunswick, Asbury Park,
man.
Jersey City, Hoboken, Maxwell shows.
And Asbury Park is insane right now. It's a totally different place,
Yo,
man.
I got Asbury Park story. You guys, did you play the old Asbury Park?
Yeah, a million times.
Where you like
Fury of Five
Stone
and all these
Pony
bands.
Were you playing like the Pony and stuff?
Yes.
Yeah, dude. We used to go to shows there as
It was
kids.
sketchy, man.
It was like park as close to the Stone Pony as you can.
Oh yeah.
Exactly.
When the show is over, you get to the car as fast as you can. You get the fuck out of that abandoned nightmare of a town. And now it's the fucking hippest spot on the Jersey Shore.
It's expensive.
All those old Victorians that
Oh,
crumbling. They're all bought and sold.
Yeah. Well, the gay community came and bought up the Victorians, and like Chelsea in New York, totally changed around the tenor of the town.
So freaking nice there, man. Now.
I worked at a magazine for years. It was this fanzine called Weird New Jersey. It's all about haunted places in New Jersey.
What's the hotel supposedly is, but okay.
There's all kinds of haunted
Okay.
shit in New Jersey. And we had our Halloween party at the Stone Pony one year. This was in like 2000 or 2001. And I brought a bunch of my friends from Rutgers. And I got a hotel room at one of the only nice hotels in town at that time. And I was working the merch table first half. My bosses were like, work the merch table, then you can hit up the bar, party. We got the hotel room, have fun. I had 3 or 4 friends from Rutgers there. I'm done with the merch table. My buddies run up to me. They're like, "Yo, Katie, she went really hard. She's like blacking out. You got to get her out of here." I was like, all right. She was like my best friend at the time. I was madly in love with her too.
Okay.
So dude, she's this little, we're like 21 years old. She's tiny little 5'3", 5'4" little blonde college girl dressed as a pumpkin. And I have to drag her from the Stone Pony to the Berkeley Hotel, which in Asbury Park it's at the other end.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, you guys can vouch for me. Half-built buildings abandoned in the middle of
Sketchy
streets.
Oh, yeah, it's creepy.
Like people yelling at me from under the boardwalk. A guy yelling at me from an abandoned hotel going like, "Get that girl out of here. You got to get that girl out of here, man. It's not fucking safe." Like people warning me.
Damn.
Like drug addicts warning me like, "Get out of here. What are you doing?" And I'm dragging her down. It was one of the scariest experiences I ever
sounds scary, man.
It was really bad.
I remember we saw that pig's head on the beach with a cigarette in his mouth.
In Asbury Park? Are you fucking serious? A pig's head smoking a cigarette?
Yeah, just a head with a cigarette in his mouth on the beach. Yeah, it's a huge head of a pig. Remember that shit?
Oh, yeah.
I remember Fury of Five. Can you pull the mic to you, Phyllis Presley, because you have a soft voice?
Yes.
Fury of Five was like banned from there, but every time we play, or probably their friends, they just pull up and just push all the bouncers and just come in and see us play, then leave.
Oh, yeah.
They were banned from there. We'll come to see them. They come right through. So they were big dudes. They just bum rush the venue just to watch us, and they leave. It was crazy, man. Crazy shows at Stone Pony, man. Rancid, Bouncing Souls.
Yeah.
So many great memories there, but it was a sketchy spot,
It was a
man.
very sketchy. When you go today, it's the coolest, hippest town. It's starting to even turn into like a little too much, you know.
Yeah.
Also, you guys,
food.
I haven't even. You know who the hardcore band was that scared us so bad in Jersey? I'll give you one.
It's not Fury 5?
Wasn't Fury 5.
Oh, E-Town Concrete.
No, E-Town Concrete. Everybody
No
loves in Jersey though.
Yeah.
Everybody loves. I'm not as familiar with them, but I have friends who are like, E-Town Concrete is our guys, and we will fucking kill for them.
Do you know that this singer was a huge hip hop mogul, and he found Little Dicky, and he's a part of hip hop, like insane. The singer.
Really?
Is. Yes.
Good for
Man.
him.
Anthony. He's
Man,
keys in
E-Town
the whole,
Concrete.
yeah.
No, I think
Who's
they were a New
scary?
York band. They used to come out to Jersey.
I know it is. I know you're gonna say.
Who?
Hang on a second, Rusty.
No,
Okay, let's see
I
what
hope
you
not.
say. Let's see what you say.
Dude, they would show up at shows, like you said, push their way into shows to watch, and we'd just go, dude, Bulldoze is here. Let's get
Oh
the fuck out of here.
shit!
Bulldoze
Okay,
showed
I
up. Let's
thought
get the
25
fuck
to
out of
life.
here.
Legit.
No.
Bulldoze legit. He just passed
Dude,
away. The singer.
I
too.
heard about that, man.
Rest in peace,
Bulldoze.
Kevin.
I remember being at shows. Bulldoze would show up to watch shows, and my older friends, like my older brother and his friends, would be like, I'd be like, but we haven't seen the band we came to play yet. They're like, we do not fucking care. Getting
Come on.
out of here. Bulldoze is here. We're not being.
Someone's gonna get hurt.
That guy Kevon, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Kev
He's
won.
Kevon scared us, man.
Rest
Was
in
it Kev
peace.
one?
Oh yeah.
Kev won.
He
I
would-
remember he jumped up the stage and put a footprint on our friend Chris's chest.
And I think it was at a Warzone show. Chris comes backstage, bloody nose, and he's like, "Yeah, Kevin just fucking smashed me in the face in the pit."
But we're all
And
friends.
guys were friends.
Friends.
So
yeah.
what was he just going to do to some fucking little shits from Jersey, you know? Dude, we went and saw Helmet played at Montclair
Great
State
band.
University at an
Yeah.
outdoor amphitheater for free.
Yeah.
We were all like, let's go
That's
see.
dope.
Let's go see. I saw them there, and I saw Mephistopheles. You know them, the Satanic
yeah.
ska band? I saw them at
They
Montclair
played
State.
Warped Tour, and
And
Oh,
dude,
yeah.
they were fucking funny. Helmet was playing, and we went and saw them live, and they were tearing it up. And then all of a sudden, you saw the crowd part, and it was just Kev from Bulldoze walking, and the
it's no
crowd
joke.
parting, and we were like, time to go. Bulldoze at a Helmet show? No fucking thanks, man. That's not gonna end well for anybody.
no, unless you have
It
like
was a
helmet,
crowd. It was a
headgear.
crowd party. Yeah.
It was
yeah.
everyone knew
Big
who that
dude.
guy was, and everybody's getting out of his way, and we were just, you could just sense like, I can't speak to his mentality, but it's like, whatever he's here for,
Yeah.
he's gonna get it,
Yeah.
and it's not necessarily gonna end well for other people.
Oh,
You could
no.
feel it. You could feel it.
Watch this transition. Is that a lot? That's a lot different when you see Robin Williams walking into your green room.
Wow. But dude, that was a great night of my life. That was one of the best nights of my life.
I read the whole thing on your
yeah,
website.
yeah. I was he was a guy. He was one of the people I loved as a kid.
Like how we transitioned from that negative scariness to Robin
Yes, yes,
yeah.
yeah. Robin Williams showed up at UCB sometimes, and it happened 2 or 3 times in New York when in my history there. And at least one of them I performed with him, and he was so gentle and nice. And one of the things I always think about is with improv, there are rules that you are taught in classes.
I read that you
coming
didn't
up.
follow them, but go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
like, it's a faux pas to like cut somebody else off or steal somebody's idea
Or take too much time.
yeah, exactly. Put the focus on you and never pass the ball back, you know?
Mm.
He broke every rule, but when I tell you it was like he beamed with such positivity that it superseded every rule, everybody would agree with that. Whereas like Chevy Chase showed up at UCB sometimes and nobody would say the same thing about him. Like that was
Got
sometimes
you.
heartbreaking.
Okay.
That was sometimes like, oh, I'm meeting one of my heroes
Yeah.
and it's not, it wasn't always bad.
Yeah.
But times where you'd just be like, oh, like this is unpleasant to see one of my heroes. There was one story where Rob Hubel, who's a great comedian who came out of UCB, and this has been printed in magazines and stuff, so I'm okay sharing it. But one day, apparently, Chevy Chase was in the green room, and Hubel walked in and was like, holy shit, and went up to him and was like, I grew up on your stuff, and a big part of why I'm doing this is because of your movies. Like, I want it to be you. That's why I signed up to do this.
Yeah.
And Chevy Chase didn't say a word and just cocked back and slapped him across the fucking face. And like, there was an article about the history of UCB where that was brought up, and they asked Chevy Chase, and he's like, I must have been doing a bit. And I'm sure he was, but like his bit was, I'm going to slap you in the face to see what you do. Like, and to see
Holy
that,
shit.
Robin Williams was the best. And the other thing I never forgot was they had a cooler of beer in the green
I
room.
read that. It's great.
And he just looked at me at one point, and he goes, oh, you guys aren't making it easy for me tonight, huh? And I was like, I turned to one of the people who worked at the theater. I was like, put the beer out in the hallway tonight, man. Like,
Wow.
let's do it. Help the guy out, you know? But I also never forgot, too, like, he did ASCAT. He did the first half. He was like, I'm just going to do the first half. Is that cool? We were like, of course. Then we do intermission. He's like, I got to do the second half. Then in between the shows, he was there with, I don't know if it was his girlfriend, wife at the time, but she came back in the green room, and he was like, I have to do the second show. I'm so sorry, I have to. And I was like, oh, right, like this is an addiction. He's loving this crowd response, and like this dopamine is in his brain, and he can't let it go. And I've been there, but I saw it. And it was like, it was wild.
Killed it.
It was so funny. Some asshole in the crowd, one of the shows, we go, can we have a suggestion to start the show? And somebody goes, Flubber, like yells out one of the names of his movies that people didn't like. And I started to get mad because that was a show I did every week, and I would host it. And I kind of felt like this is a guest in my house.
Yes.
And I started to be like, hey, and he said something that was just so charming, but also hard, like something along the lines of just like, yeah, I can take the jokes too. I don't just have to say them. By all means, you can pick on old Robin. Like, but everybody started cheering and clapping with the way he said it. I was just like, man, this guy is like very pure of heart and very genuine. Damn, it was really cool. That's
a beautiful moment to be part of that and see
yeah,
that.
Definitely. Sorry, I talked bad about Chevy Chase, but it was
okay.
just such a dichotomy between the two.
And I read that you were at some like vegan restaurant or something when you heard the news about Robin.
Yeah, I was with some friends at a restaurant down near like Washington Square Park, and all of a sudden my friend Noah Foreman, he wrote on my show, he just was like, we're like, what? And he's like, Robin Williams died? And I remember right away being like, he killed himself, and everyone was like, yeah. It was just like,
yeah, it's tough.
So sad, you know? 'Cause he was one of the guys who seemed to have pushed through it so hard, you know, after having that attached to his reputation for so long.
Yeah.
It's really brutal.
You're here's another switch to something positive. You're a father.
Yeah, which I love.
And your kid's 4 now?
He's 4.
He said his 4th birthday.
Yeah.
I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah, he just turned 4 on Monday, 2 days ago.
Awesome, man.
Yeah.
It's amazing, right?
It's the best. It's so hard. It's so exhausting.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, I'm like, my career the past few years, I have felt the momentum go. And some of that is like I'm older. And some of that's I don't have time to be out on the scene every night, doing shows every night, rubbing elbows with people. And then some of it is like, I want to be home with this kid.
Yes.
I can hopefully pick up and do shows later, but like now he loves me being around. In a few years, he's not gonna. He's gonna think I'm lame.
No, he won't.
We'll see. You know? But like he'll hit a point where he wants to go hang out with his friends when he's a teenager. Now, if I'm home and I'm down to play with him, he's like, yes.
Yeah, you're a superhero to him.
That's the best.
Yeah.
So I don't necessarily need to go out and do 10 shows a week anymore. I'll do 1 or 2. But, I mean, you know, like, if you're only doing 1 or 2 shows in New York, you're not even really a comedian at that point. You're not putting your foot on the gas at all.
Yeah.
So it's a sacrifice. But
do you feel like
so
you have to go
worth it.
harder now because you have a kid?
I stress about money more than I ever have.
Totally.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, I lost my health insurance during the pandemic, and that was one of the scariest things ever to realize, like, oh, I've always had, as an artist, I get it through the Screen Actors Guild, and I'm like, if I lose my health insurance, I'll just pray I don't get sick. But a kid, you can't do that.
I know.
Can't do that.
It's hard.
So that was very sobering, and that rearranged my priorities, and yeah, I'm starting next month. I'm actually going to start doing a bunch of work for this great mental health nonprofit called Wellness Together. And they're going to give me health insurance to come do a bunch of work, helping to organize artists to come like do fundraisers for them and do like programming with kids in schools. And sometimes I'm like, am I quitting on my dream? Like I've done this for 23 years and I've been relatively successful.
Yeah.
And then I sit there. I've talked with friends of mine where I'm like, I feel good about this, but I'm worried I'm quitting. And I've had a few friends of mine to be like, the dude we knew in 2011, 2009, when you were like doing the Gethard show and pissing in diapers and going on public access TV and trying to get your favorite bands. Like if you asked that guy in 2010, hey, you could move to LA and do pilot season, or you could do a bunch of work for a mental health nonprofit helping to get artists into schools to interact with kids. That guy would have 1,000% chosen to do what you're about to do.
Yeah.
He would have been like, why would I go do pilot season if I could do this other thing that helps people hands-on?
It's important to you,
So
too.
it is.
Yeah.
It is. So I try to let the self-doubt go and try to embrace all the many positives of it. Because there's a lot of self-doubt, you know? A lot of self-doubt and going, I'm going to have a day job for the first time in 23 years.
Yeah. It's been your own boss the whole time, pretty much.
Yeah.
You still do writing for people and all that stuff?
I do a lot of stand-up, which is writing for myself, my podcast.
Yeah.
I try to pick up acting work. Now that I'm getting my health insurance through this nonprofit, I don't need to scramble. Last year, I did acting jobs where I was gone from my house for 7 weeks between LA and Vancouver. And I just sit there and I go, it's a cool life. I'm not down about it, and I am not trying to complain about getting acting gigs. But right now, 7 weeks away from my kid is
Brutal.
the headline. No matter what the acting gig is.
Yes.
Yeah.
It does not outshine the fact that I spent 7 weeks of my son's life not with him, and I just can't mentally handle that right now.
Yeah.
So
I just saw you filmed a new special with Father and the Son.
I recorded it. It's going to come out on Audible soon. It's just
Okay.
the audio version of it. They're getting
Okay.
it. They're now buying specials, which is I'm very glad that they wanted to pay me for a special because it's always nice to make some money. But yeah, a lot of that is it's a show where I start talking a lot about my son, and it feels like, okay, comedian had a kid. Now is his kid special. That's kind of a trope. But halfway through, I wound up telling a story about this thing my dad did when I was young that I just understand now that I have a kid, where he
Yeah.
basically threatened to kill one of my brother's bullies. He cornered a teenager in a parking lot in our town
Wow.
and was like,
It's fucking awesome.
basically told him the day you turn 18, don't
Coming
ever.
for you.
It's a spoiler of the show, but
Oh shit, sorry.
no, it's all good. But just because it's amazing what he did, where he basically said to this kid, "You're 17 now," and the kid was like, "So what?" And he's like, "Well, I'm gonna wait a year, and I see you walking a lot around town." And he's like, "Just so you know, if someday I have an accident and hit you with my car, I'm gonna hit you so hard it takes them weeks to find your fucking body in the woods."
Oh,
Because
my
he's
God.
like,
Goosebumps, bro.
He's like, "I see you walking on Eagle Rock Avenue along those woods, and guess what? I get really tired behind the wheel when I've been working late, and it's really dark in that stretch of road, and I just have this bad feeling they're gonna find your fucking body weeks later." Like,
Oh, that
The
kid was
kid
terrified
was a shit
terrified
himself.
this kid,
Oh yeah,
terrified
pissed
this
his
kid.
pants.
And I always laughed at that story,
Yo.
and I always had a part of myself that was like, "Oh, my dad was kind of fuck. Like, my dad's the best." Don't
That's
get me
New
wrong.
York hardcore style.
Dude, my dad is a North Jersey fucking. My dad's got a PhD in environmental science. He's a smart, brilliant guy, but he's got North Jersey working class in him to his core too.
And he's your dad. And that's what dads do, man.
But
Like,
that's what I never understood. That's what the show's really about. Where I'm like,
Mm.
I always thought that my dad was kind of nuts. That my dad had a side of him that could snap and be nuts.
Now you get it.
That's
though.
what that story was for me until the day my son was born, and I was like, oh, my dad wasn't nuts. My dad was scared and needed to take action and was being a good dad.
Protecting
And
his
the
kid.
day my son was
Protective.
born, I was like, all these things where I thought my dad had this insane side, they make sense now.
That's
And that's what the
incredible.
show's about,
That's
really.
amazing. Your
Yeah.
dad's amazing.
Dude, he had a couple.
That kid didn't tell his parents or the police or nothing, or that took that threat like seriously. And
No, the police never showed up at the door, man. But that's when it
what
was.
if he told? What if he told his parents? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Dude, well, not trying to talk. You know,
Who knows?
my
Yeah.
parents had already talked to those parents.
Okay,
and
okay,
told
okay.
them
Many
this shit has to
times.
stop.
Okay.
And when I tell you,
Yeah.
when I tell you he confronted one of my brother's bullies, my brother had a lot of bullies. My dad
Okay.
wasn't going after all of them.
Okay.
This kid did some stuff that, if I told you off mic what they did to my brother,
Okay.
you'd be like,
find 'em.
something needed to happen.
Okay.
And my dad was like, oh yeah, I've talked to his parents. We've talked to the school.
Nothing.
I guess it's got to be me. I guess I got to drive. I guess I got to drive around till I find this kid, and I have to put the fear of death in him.
Yeah.
It wasn't warranted by nothing.
Did that change like your whole perspective of your dad? Obviously, in respect and like understanding and
I'll tell you, I mentioned before, like I got in a lot of fights growing up, and some of it was because my brother is a sweet guy. He didn't want to fight. I remember my dad being like, if you see them coming, you hit them first. If they do hit you, you hit them harder. My mom's like, the only thing I ever got mad about, he once told my brother, you pick up a rock, you bash in their skull if you have to. And my dad meant it. And my brother was like, stop, you're crazy. And I remember I was sitting on our steps watching it. They were in the living room. My dad was so like, you got to learn how to fight. My dad goes, you pick up a rock, you bash in their skull if you have. And I remember sitting on my steps and I was like, got it. And that was me. And my dad still today, my dad is like, you'd get in fights at school and I'd have to go pick you up. And it'd be you and the other kids sitting there. And he'd be like, the kid's he'd be driving me home. He'd be like, the kid's 12 inches taller than you. What the fuck are you doing? I'd be like, he fucked with me, Dad. There was I remember one kid in gym class, he threw me on the ground and I landed on all the badminton equipment. They had the badminton net set up in the gym class. And I, without hesitation, took a badminton racket and smashed it over this guy and broke it in half. And everybody was watching it and was like, okay, Gethard's little, but he's fucking nuts. Like,
Yeah, you don't
he's
fuck
nuts,
with
but
him.
he's wild. And people did still mess with me from time to time, but a lot less. You know what I mean? A lot
Yeah.
less. And they at least knew, like,
It
okay,
wasn't
like,
going to be easy.
like it's not going to be easy. Like, you're probably going to win the fight. Like, you're probably going to actually take half of this badman racket and beat the shit out of me with one of these broken badman halves. But like,
You
it's
might
going to
lose.
go that far with me. And a lot of that was because of my dad. So I had to unwrap some of that, but it was also a gift in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
But when I had my kid, I was like, oh, that's where that all came from. Just this frustration and
Yeah,
this
of
fear
course.
and this like
Protection, rage.
protection and like nobody's being like. I went to a school that was very concerned with property values in a suburban town. Like, okay, like stuff happened that the police should be at this school looking into it. And not just with my brother, a lot of times. And it just didn't happen. And you look back now as a grown up and you're like, oh, because they didn't want property values to go down. They didn't want school rate. They didn't want people to
Yeah.
know how dark it was getting in this fucked up, violent environment. So it just doesn't get reported.
Yeah.
It's not being run up the chain. You know, like that stuff. I sensed that when I was a kid. And I was like, adults, you can't trust them. And I look back now, I realized my dad was going like, all right, you guys don't want to do anything? I'll start killing kids, I guess. Like, I'll kill kids. You guys don't want to give them a suspension? Okay. I guess I'll just run them over with my car if I have to. There's a few stories like that with him.
He's
And
a badass, man.
I've always loved all those
I
stories.
love
He's
you,
also,
Pops.
also, I'll say too, because you guys are seeing me. My dad, I look like my mom's side of the family. My dad's 6'2", 220.
Okay.
He's pretty big.
Okay.
Like not the biggest guy ever, but like big enough that you don't want him cornering you in the parking lot of the local church saying,
Yeah.
I'm gonna run you over with my car. Like he could, but now I get it. He was a papa bear, and I understand that for the first time, and I kind of love it.
Yeah, I love it too. That's an incredible story, man.
Yeah.
It's like a movie, man.
He had a few movie moments growing up. Some kids once vandalized our house. They had done it a couple times, and he started sleeping on the front. But this was when I was a baby, so I've only heard this. My mom loves clowning on him. He's so embarrassed by this story. I'm sorry, Dad, but he started sleeping under a pile of like blankets on our front porch. 'Cause these kids were kicking. We had an aluminum front door, and we lived in a pretty, you know. It was just working class kids with parents who had problems. These kids were roaming the streets, causing trouble in the 80s. And they kept kicking in this aluminum door. And my dad had like hung it himself. And, you know, it was like the first house he ever bought. He was proud of it. And they did it. He hammers out the door, gets it all smooth again. They do it again. So he starts sleeping out there. And he sleeps out there a couple nights. My mom's like, you're sleeping in a nest of blankets. This is fucking nuts. So he goes back to his bed that night. He's like, you're right, I'm being nuts. They kick in the door that night. He's like, motherfuckers. You know, he's like, motherfuckers. Like,
That's the night I should have been there.
so he goes out there again. And one night they come and he hears them whispering. He's like, oh shit, I think it's them. He hears them coming up the front steps. And then like, bam, bam, bam on the door. And he fucking he starts chasing these kids. We lived right near this park, Colgate Park. He chases them into the park, but they used to hang out there at night. And he didn't realize there was a parking lot that they used to hang a chain across, stop cars. He hit the chain and he went face first. He was like covered head to toe in mud. And he started corners. This park was built on a hill, and the hill ended on a wall, like on a baseball field. So you can imagine like a half circle outfield walled in.
Yeah.
These kids are all pinned against the wall, like trying to climb up and get out. And he's got them. And he's a big guy. He goes up to them, and he goes, which one of you kicked in the door? And none of them are ratting. He's like, who kicked the fucking door? Who kicked the fucking door? And no one would say anything. And he goes, I didn't actually know this till a couple of years ago. They told me the whole story. I always knew how he threatened them, but it was more specific. He goes, okay, you guys don't want to tell me? Then you. And he just points at one of the kids, and he goes, you. And he like, this is a neighborhood. Everybody grew up. My aunts, uncles, cousins, like everybody's families, multiple generations. Everybody knew it. He's like, I know your name. He's like, I know which family you're from. He dropped the kid's last name. He's like, I know your dad. I know where you live. He's like, okay, so I know you. So you don't want to tell me who did it? Then I'm coming to you, and I'm going to crush you with a pipe. He's like, I got a pipe back at my house. I'm going to get the pipe. I'm going to cave your fucking skull in. You want to tell me who it was now? And then the fucking then the cops showed up.
Oh, my God.
And he's like, of course, goes back to being my dad. He's like, officers, I'm so glad you're here. They're like, no, you're the mud-covered 220-pound man threatening teenagers. Like, we got to deal with you first.
Oh, shit.
But he didn't get arrested. They knew these kids were like, they were trouble. They had dealt with these kids before, so they're like, all right, dude.
Little pains in the ass.
He's like, they've been kicking in my door for 2 weeks. They're like, get the fuck out of here. And then it turned out my mom called the police. My mom was like, because I was a baby. My brother was 2.5. My mom's like, he's going to go to jail. I'm going to have to raise these kids by myself. She called the cops on my dad. And was like, he's going to fucking kill somebody. You got to get there before he does. Like, he had that in him. He had that in him.
Is he way chill now?
Dude, when my son, I'll never forget when I still lived in Queens. My son was born out there. We had my son in the little rocker, and my parents were visiting. I came out of the one room, and I saw my dad rolling around on the floor in front of my son. He's going like, ooh, ooh, ah, ah, like waving his fingers in front of my kid. I honestly had a moment where I was like, who the fuck is this man? You had this in you? You had this in you the whole time?
Yeah.
Like, I didn't even think this existed. Like, ooh, 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 like playing with him. He plays with my son now in a way that I'm sure I had at some, but he also had to be the disciplinarian.
Yeah.
My mom did a lot of the when your father gets home thing to and that was not fair. There were times where I look back where I realized my dad walked home. He just wanted to eat his food. And meanwhile, he walks in and his sons are like visibly like, oh shit, he's home.
Yeah.
It's not how you want to come home, you know? And then you got to be that guy because you got to back up my mom. Like a lot of that. And he was also stressed out about money all the time. Now he's retired.
What was his job?
He worked in the pharmaceutical industry, which is a big deal in New Jersey. And he started out like very low level and then just worked his way up. And then a very funny story is like my family, we grew up middle class in a neighborhood where like my mom's parents were immigrants from Ireland.
Yeah.
And like there were families in our neighborhood where it was tough, where you're like, oh, those kids, like there was a family that lived a few blocks away where their windows didn't have glass in them. They had like plastic sheets over the windows. And it's like, I look back at that. It's one of those things where again, where I was just like, that's not fucking right that nobody, like there were kids in there.
Yeah.
Like that's not right, you know? So, my family was like stable middle class, and we grew up with people who were kind of from that down to like working class who had to fight, you know? Like that was my neighborhood my whole life. So my dad wound up working for years at Pfizer Pharmaceuticals, which in 1998 put out Viagra. Now the thing about Pfizer was a lot of their employees used to grumble because everybody wanted a bonus, like just a check. Cut us a check at Christmas. They wouldn't do that. They give you stock options. All these people are like, what the fuck are stocks?
Yo.
All of a sudden, Viagra comes out in 1998, and everybody cashed in their stock options. My dad was like, I knew guys who drove forklifts for 40 years who became millionaires overnight because they had never touched these stock options because they were working class people, not stock market people.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, everybody's like, yo, the stocks just went up by like 1,500% in a week. Cash in.
Oh, hell yeah.
And so people, you know, stock options, like you're able to buy a stock at the rate it was set at when they gave you the option.
Yeah.
So it's like you can buy it for $1 and sell it for $180 right now. Like lottery. Mm-hmm. So all of a sudden, my family had some money for the first time. And my dad was never...
Your dad sold them back then, yeah.
Yeah, my dad was just... He was never ostentatious. We moved a couple towns away to a town that didn't have as many rough edges. And our life was very similar. But I just had this sense that there was financial stability for the first time. And my dad chilled out a lot.
Thank you, Viagra.
When that happened. Yeah. And our last name spells Gethard. And my dad's name is Ken. His name is Ken Gethard.
Oh my God,
made, like,
dude!
This money on Viagra, and that was like, it was really, really weird. I think I was 18 when that happened, and to go like my whole childhood, living one way amongst type of people that I understood and that had its problems and that was in some ways scary, you know, but where I'm like, I understand it. To all of a sudden go like, oh, I can feel that there's stability now in a way we haven't had, and to just go like. Oh, it's like both a weight off the shoulders and then also reiterated a lot of feelings I always had about just like I said, shit where it would be like you'd see families where everybody knew it was stuff and nobody helping. Teachers not helping, the town not helping, nobody helping, and be like, it's so fucking unfair. And I still have a lot of those feelings today. Yeah. My friend Nick makes fun of me because he's like, dude, you've been on TV now. You've had some projects that have gotten big. He's like, we all know you have made some money in your life. Like you hosted a TV show and you will still, on our New Jersey podcast, if someone brings up the town of Short Hills, I'll be like, those fucking rich kids thought they were better than us. He's like, dude, we all know you made money I'm like, I know, I got to drop this shit at some point, but it's in there. It's still in there, you know?
Yeah. Fuck.
Still in there. You bring up certain towns in New Jersey, I'm like, those fucking kids thought they were so much better than us. He's like, yeah, probably because they were, man. Like, they had stable lives. Like,
Those
they had
spoiled ass rich kids.
I still am like, they fucking thought they were better than us. He's like, you are 43 and a dad now, man. Like, when are you gonna get over this? So I've been working on.
You're
that.
working on that.
I have been working on that.
You're in a
Of
good
like,
place now.
yeah, of like people aren't inherently bad if they have money. Like, it's what you choose to do with your life.
Totally.
You know, like and for a long time I was like, the rich kids are the reason.
It's like, nah.
It's like, nah, not really.
Yeah.
In some cases, there were spoiled kids who made life shittier, but it's not inherently, it doesn't make you bad. And I'm learning that.
That's
Even though
nice.
I've made some money in my life, not a ton, enough that I like own a nice house in Jersey.
Nice,
you know, like
man. Good.
I can own a house,
Good for you, man.
but I still am like,
Do you have any major regrets in your life?
oh yeah, so many. So many. Yeah, I mean, I regret that I was never in a band.
Okay. It's never too late for that, but
I was in a Morrissey cover band for a while.
there you go.
Nice.
Dressed up as Morrissey with some friends of mine. That was my little dabbling to feel like the front man. What else? You know, definitely some professional regrets along the way. Sometimes where I didn't believe in myself and I realized I should have. Sometimes
Yeah.
where a lot of my regrets are times where I look back and I go, my path to having a career took a lot longer purely because of my self-doubt.
You got in the way of yourself, kind of.
A lot of
Got in your
people,
head.
a lot of people believed in me more than I believed in myself. That's probably still true. So some of those things, definitely, you know, being a kid who wasn't confident. There's like a couple times I look back on where I'm like, oh, that girl in college really liked me, and I had a feeling she wanted me to make a move, and I didn't because I had doubted myself, and you know, things like that. The basic regrets everybody has, but as far as big ones. Nothing huge.
Yeah.
I think I don't know that I always made the right choices. I don't know that things always went the way I wanted them to, but I think I always generally did things for the right reasons at least.
Mm-hmm.
And again, a lot of that does go back to music, you know. A lot of that
ethics.
a lot of that does go back to like you know, like when we were trying to sell our show from public access to cable, I had not one but two networks say, "We want to buy your show." Which would have changed my whole life.
Yeah.
And they said, but, you know, I had all these people on screen with me, like 4 or 5 people on screen, going, okay, but we want you to still host it, but we need to hire a different.
Yeah, these are my friends.
We need to hire. We need to hire different sidekicks, basically.
Yeah.
And me going, absolutely not.
No.
2 different networks that I was like, I'm so sorry, I can't. When it would have changed my life, you know. But I'm like, we built this together for a half decade. My name is on it. I'm the one who benefits the most from that. It also means I need to be the most responsible and try to sacrifice the most at times.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to abandon my friends now, you know? And
No, that's
like,
I think it's awesome you did that. Yeah.
I think I always did things the right way.
Yeah.
So the regrets are there, but they're small, and they are far outweighed by the fact that I feel very lucky that I got to have a career with like a lot of fun and a lot of joy.
Yeah, doing what you love. Yeah.
Yeah, and now I have a kid, and I get to maybe like take my foot off the gas and just raise him, and keep trying to make art, but have a different safety net than I've ever had.
And help you with mental health issues. And all that stuff.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And I still feel self-doubt every day. I still sit and question like, how did my momentum? I had a TV show and then it ended, and it kind of never got back to that place. What did I do? You know, I still have all those questions about like, how come it just feel I can feel that I'm less relevant than I used to be. I can feel that I'm less hip than I used to be. What happened? And then on my best days, I'm like, you just grew up, and that's what happens.
You know who the most relevant for is your son.
Yeah,
yeah.
big time.
It's
And
the
it's
most incredible things.
it's
Making
probably
the
more important than
Yeah.
there's and also like to also be aware enough to be like, there's also like I felt angry and driven to be like, I want to make a show for bullied kids, you know? But
Yeah.
also I'm like, I'm 43 now and I own a house in Jersey. I have a nice life,
Yeah.
you know? And there's people now who started after me who do have things that they're still pissed about and to fight about. So what am I going to do? Am I going to sit here and fake the fights that I used to have when they're not as much like fire in my guts anymore? Why? Like there's artists now who are angry about stuff. They need the oxygen I used to take up. And I got to have some humility and admit that too, you know? Like
Yeah,
you got to be humble and be like, there's only so much room for people. And like, if I tried to be like, I'm still the pissed outsider underdog public access guy, I'd be faking it.
Yeah.
But there's people who are younger than me right now who are comedians who have their own struggles, or especially people who don't look like me, you know.
Yeah.
So many comedians now there's so many more women in comedy than when I came up. In New York, when I started, you could count the gay, queer comedians on 2 hands.
Yeah.
Now it's a whole scene, it's a whole movement. And I sit here and I go, I don't have any right to take up oxygen in the scene of like young, troublemaking, rabble-rousing comedians anymore. I'm a 43-year-old dad who lives in the suburbs. Like, I can be supportive and I can still be a part of it and I can still try to do my shows and sell tickets and have a career. But as far as the people who are really like rattling chains,
Yeah.
people who have fights to fight right now, and I gotta get out of their way. I can't try to hang on to some sense of relevance that I had 5 years ago. Who cares?
Yeah, it's a new chapter for you, man.
Yeah.
Family. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Like you consider yourself an optimist or pessimist?
It's a really tough question. Well, I think actually a lot of my experience with therapy and a lot of learning who I was learning how to let the cynicism and the pessimism go and try to replace it with hope. You know, it really is. Also, I'm at a very weird. I was born in 1980, so like my older brother and a lot of his friends were like that cynical Gen X sense of humor. Like everything was sarcastic, everything was cynical. You know, everything too was like, also was like that thing of like, oh, there's this TV show and people going like, well, prove to me why I should like it. Oh, there's this new band, their CD is great. Prove to me why should I let that? It's like, and then I kind of am at the tail end of Gen X, but the beginning of a millennial too, where I had to opt into the millennial thing, which was like, this song is good and I'm just going to like it because it's catchy.
Mm-hmm.
And if I find out a reason to not like it, then I'll not like it. If I find out the artist is an asshole, but not this gatekeeping thing that the older guys around me always had. So much of my life was like, strip away some of the anger and the distrust and the cynicism and the gatekeeping and having your guard up and just like have some faith that on a fundamental level, people are good. Actually, you want to talk about regret? One of my big regrets was this thing that changed my life. And I don't remember who said it to me. I regret so hardcore. Someone once said to me when I was in my mid-20s and I was really struggling with stuff and there was a lot of anger in me. Somebody said to me, like, you know, like, people will surprise you, man, but you have to let them. And that, like, got through to me when I was at an age where I was ready to grow up a little bit. And it really, I was like, I have to take a breath and not have my guard up all the time and not like assume the worst of people. And then, you know, so many people where it'd be like, I became friends with them where I think back, I'd be like, oh, when I first met you, I didn't like the looks of you. And that was my thing, like hold people away. It's like, no, you got to start from a point of like, let people in, assume people are good.
Open arms.
And if that proves to not be the case, then you can phase them out or reject them. But why start from a place where people have to like penetrate this armor to get in? I spent way too many years hanging on to that attitude.
That's punk rock attitude.
There was a lot of that.
A lot of people, mohawks.
There was a lot of that.
The look was I got to look hard, and you got to push past this look to really know who I am.
Like a shield.
And I understand where it came from, but I wonder if you guys would agree too. There's this very pleasant, like a handful of years ago when I like started getting back into the DIY stuff through my TV show, I started to realize that like the DIY spaces that were doing those shows, they all had this mentality of like, hey everybody, this is a safe space. Like everyone's welcome here.
100%.
And I think back to shows where I'm like, when I was a kid, it felt gatekeeping. It felt like, why do you deserve to be here? That whole thing of like, are you just some kid who found, did you just find Green Day on MTV and now you're trying to show up at a local show? And people would give you a hard time, you know? Or like this idea of shows being safe. I'm like, no, skinheads used to beat us. Like the Bergen County Youth Crew used to show up and do the Wall of Death and they were trying to trample you. Like you'd have to run away. It wasn't physically safe. It wasn't emotionally safe. And I am so thrilled that the punk scene turned that corner because it's just such a better thing to be like, if you're a misfit or a weirdo or you found this, you have a home here and
100%.
You'll get rejected if you're an asshole. But like, it seems like the starting point now is so much less of like, you have to prove that you belong.
100%.
It's a beautiful thing.
It is. And
And
when we came around, it was like a place
it-
for
it
misfits.
was-
And then later on, it did.
DC seemed like it had
Oh,
that.
Yeah, then it got
much
really,
earlier
then it
than
got really
anybody else.
violent in the 90s. It got really violent, and
Yeah.
the
The
dancing
Boston guys were the really nuts hardcore guys, right?
I mean, back in the day, Boston versus New York and DC, there was
Yeah.
like all the different generations had their
harder.
own style of dancing,
Yeah.
whether it was more aggressive or violent. But the early 90s, mid 90s, it got really crazy. You know what I mean? Like really intense and violent. But it is a place to go and be yourself and express yourself and not get picked on. And
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
it's beautiful now.
It is.
It's like a much gentler, more beautiful version.
And there's
of
so
it.
many hardcore bands now. That scene's alive everywhere in the whole world right now.
Yeah,
There's
it's
so
really
you
cool.
listen to new bands and stuff, new music.
I listen to some just like everybody who likes punk rock. Turnstile came out of
Yes.
Baltimore with the hard, where you're like,
Yes.
they call themselves a hardcore. I'm listening. I'm like, this feels like art. This feels like art rock stuff. But I guess it is also hardcore. Like,
Hardcore.
It's got everything.
fucking cool,
Yeah.
you know. And then I'm lucky too. My wife has really impeccable taste. She's always finding new music, so
Okay.
I get to just ride her coattails.
Okay.
Nice.
There's this French band right now called Les Loulis, I think they're called, and I really like them. Illuminati Hotties, they're like a
I never heard of that.
they're female fronted band, I think from LA. They're great lately.
That's
like
awesome.
yeah, I'm always dabbling with new stuff, and
You going to shows still?
I go to some shows. It's hard with the kid.
Yeah, of course.
It's hard with the kid. My wife had a very nice thought a few years ago. She was like, we got to start seeing some of the like rock and roll legends because they're all going to start dying.
Oh yeah.
So we saw Springsteen on Broadway. We saw Bob Dylan. We saw Paul Simon's last show at MSG. We saw
Nice.
Tom Petty before he died.
Woo.
We're about to go see The Cure. I've never seen The
We're about to see
Cure.
The Cure out here too next month.
Yeah, Hallie snagged tickets to The Cure, I think at MSG.
Damn.
So we've been
Depeche
seeing
Mode?
a lot of that. Yeah,
Depeche
we
Mode
saw
just came
Depeche
through.
Mode at Barclays Center a couple years ago.
Awesome.
So we've been seeing some of the legends. And then I just like, the Ergs are playing in Asbury Park, that band I met. They're playing in May. And do you guys know the Marked Men from Texas?
Mm-mm.
You would love the Marked Men. They've been around forever.
Okay. I'll check them out.
They're
yeah.
really interesting, man. They've been around forever. They broke up for a long time. They're back now. They have this very distinct, it's like punk rock, but definitely sort of like, almost like Rocket from the Crypt rock and roll
I like
style
them
punk
too.
rock.
Yeah.
And they I think put all their lyrics through like Tascam cassette recorders. It just sounds fucking cool. And it's like they have all these great albums. And I realized at one point, like, one of the only rules of life that I maintain is true is the third track on any Marked Men album is going to be the best song you hear that year. For some reason, all of their track threes are the fucking
Bangers.
best. I don't know if that's intentional or just luck.
Oh. What's this Jersey album you're part of? That sorry, like you may be hosting it's a compilation with different Jersey.
So that's
bands?
another pandemic thing where there
Shades
was
Apart, Vision.
So there was this scene called NJPP, and that was like Humble Beginnings, which Gabe from Midtown, he was the bassist in Humble Beginnings. A bunch of other bands. Big Wig was another band you probably crossed paths with.
Big Wig,
They
of
were
course.
tangentially a part of that. They were like the big ones to come out of it. But there were a lot of small Jersey bands, and a lot of those guys are all still in touch. And there's this dude, he runs a great podcast called This Was the Scene. This guy Mike, who was in a band called Lane Meyer. And it's just all about that Jersey scene from when I was in high school. And they all found out that I used to be at those shows. And like constantly. And I was this quiet kid. And I was like, I put out this fanzine and some of them like, I remember that fanzine. It was funny. And I was like, so my best friend put out this comp and I was the one who sold the comp at the merch tables. And they were like, all our bands were on that. The Exit 6 Records comp, the Bob Ross. And they were like, oh, you're for real. You were really around. I was like, I was around. I saw all of your bands play.
That's amazing.
And then they came to really, I told them, it's way too long and I know we're going late, but I used to fuck with a bunch of these bands on the internet.
What? You were a troll?
I started trolling them in college.
Oh,
Early
no.
troll. Well, I
You
had
remember what message
good
board
way?
it was?
I
I fucking hated the message board.
There was a stretch where every band had a website, and the website had what was called a guest book on it.
Yes.
Yeah.
You could go on like Angel
Yeah.
Fire and make your own website. And I had a friend who I met on the internet in an Andy Kaufman news group. And he lived in Hawaii, and I'd never met him in person, and he was really brilliant and funny, but very, very weird. And to make me laugh, he would go on to Jersey bands' guest books and like leave these very strange messages under this name Some Kid. This like mysterious names. And he had a Some Kid website with a fake picture. And one of the bands took offense to it. And we really weren't at first trying to mess with them too bad. He was just being a weirdo.
What a
to make
band
me
you
laugh.
liked?
This band I've seen a dozen times, Lane Meyer.
Oh my
Like one of the top 2 or 3 bands from this little micro scene. In
They
North
obviously
Jersey.
know it's you by now, but go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. And this Ben Lanemeyer was like, hey, you're being a weirdo on all the guest books. Like, just fuck off, dude. And as soon as he saw it, he was like, why don't you fuck off? And they'd be like, come to our show. And then he'd do a thing where he'd be like, so tell me some things about this venue. And I'd be like, all right, they're playing at the Boonton Elks Lodge, and it's on this shit. I've been there.
You were feeding them information.
And then, dude, he'd be in Hawaii, and he'd be like, so I'm going to show up, and here's where I'm eating, and he'd drop the name of a restaurant near the venue. Before the show, I'll be eating there, and then I'm going to the show.
Yo.
And after your second song, I'm going to walk up, and I'm going to grab one of the mics, and if you want to say this shit to my face, we can have it right there. Fucking Stone Cold versus The Rock style, motherfucker. And they'd be like, all right, some kid. And, dude, then I'd go to the shows.
Would you see him like?
I'll be tensed up.
Dude, the whole crowd beforehand would be like, is some kid here? Anybody seen some kid? Where's some kid? Because there was this picture. Dude, he went to a random library in Hawaii and took out the high school yearbook from the library and just found this picture of this kid. It was this like chubby kid who had frosted tips in his hair.
This random person, dude.
This random kid who had, to this day, has no idea any of this happened.
Catfishing, too.
They'd be like, anybody see fucking some kid? This, and I'd be standing there. I'd be like, whoa. And then,
Oh, my
dude, and then one time I'm at a Lanemeyer show, and the guy gets on a mic. He's like, some kid. Because I'd also be, they'd go on the guest book and be like, some kid you didn't show, fucking scared. You talk shit and then you're scared. And then I'd tell my buddy, like, here's what happened at the show. And he'd be like, actually,
I was there.
here's the first song you played. You covered fucking this U2 song. You said this in between tracks 4 and 5 about me. And they'd be like, fuck, he was there and we fucking missed him and this and that. And for like a summer in New Jersey in the pop punk scene, it became this thing. And at one point, I was friends with these guys in a band named Shorty. I wound up living with one of them in college. And I was at this guy's house. And I'm there with the members of the band. And they're all like, I'm sitting there. And they're all like, dude's like, I don't want to play shows with Lanemeyer right now. Because, like, if this kid shows up, if they find out who it is, they're going to, like, break his bones. Like, I think it's serious. I think this guy, whoever the fuck is doing this, is going to get
No fucking
and I'm the
way.
one doing it. And I'm sitting there listening to it. And I
Oh, my
stopped.
God, dude.
I told my buddy CT, I was like, we got to stop. I think it's actually turning into a thing where I might get killed. If anybody finds out I'm a part of, like, you're in fucking Hawaii. You have 3,000 miles of continent and an
You
ocean.
never even met this guy either.
Dude, I'd never met him in real life. We just
Oh
had this
my
friendship
God.
where we talk on the phone and fuck around. And it was like some of my early attempts at comedy, too. You know, I was like trying to be creative and it got out of control. So I went on the This Was the Scene podcast. So they're doing a show in May in Jersey where a bunch of the guys from these bands are all hanging out and playing each other's songs. And they asked me if I'd come headline as a comedian. And I was like, I owe you that. I owe you that.
We
for
talk
sure.
about it on stage, you think, about being some kid?
We'll see if anybody cares, but yeah, they all heard about that, and they were like, and there were like most of them were like, I don't remember this at all, and then 4 or 5 of the guys in this message group were like, that was, I've wondered for 20 fucking years who that was.
Dude.
Yeah, man.
Wow.
I trolled the North Jersey punk scene for a summer, and it almost ended badly. I started hearing like good-hearted people saying like, we might need to like back out of that show because I don't want to be there if that's the show where somebody gets fucking hurt.
Oh man.
I was like, oh, sitting like on the same couch, like, oh yeah.
That's
Damn.
Calling my buddy that night and being like, seriously, stay, don't, please.
Yeah, don't say
That
shit.
is fucking
Leave
crazy.
it alone.
That's like that's some catfish.
Because it was
internet.
not hard to set off punks. In the
No,
90s.
Oh, no.
hell no.
It wasn't hard to give
So
punks.
sensitive.
All they wanted was a reason to fight. you
Yeah.
know?
And
Yeah.
super sensitive too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is the most random ending of the pod, but were you in Iron Man 3 and uncredited?
I got cut from Iron Man 3. It was heartbreaking.
Wow.
Yeah.
Fuck
Because
yeah.
I grew up obsessed with Marvel Comics.
Oh,
And now I have my
yeah.
son obsessed with Marvel Comics. Filmed all my scenes with Don Cheadle. All this shit too. I was a scientist and they were like, wave your fingers like this and we're going to do all like the 3D animation of the
Oh,
fucking
man.
crazy Iron Man computers.
Yeah.
And they cut it.
Bro.
Killer. I still get I'll get a check for like 35 cents from Disney every few months.
How long was your scene going to be? you
It was
think?
going to be the opening scene of Iron Man 3.
Oh my God.
It was going to be this,
dude.
you know how because
Speaking
Don
parts.
Cheadle was War Machine and then they changed the name.
Yeah.
It was the whole thing was I was the scientist that was helping Tim come up with like the new name and new technology and new costume. It would have been so
Wow.
fucking
That would've
awesome.
been- yeah.
And you were in 2 episodes of The Office too?
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
sick.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, season 9 after Carell left, but
Still,
I get
though.
asked more about I get stopped and recognized from The Office more than anything else. And
Yeah.
I hosted a TV show that was called The Chris Gethard Show for
Yeah.
3 years on cable. Nobody saw it.
But The Office
Yeah.
people recognize you from that.
I can't. The people who were on The Office from like day one for all the seasons, I can't imagine what their lives are like. Because the amount I get stopped, I'm like, oh, those people can't walk down the street
You're like,
So that's the most you get recognized for is from The Office?
by far. That and then
Wow.
like anywhere in America, it's The Office. On the coasts, it's also Broad City, because that was a little bit more of like a hip. That's like a New York City hipster show.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So if I'm in New York or LA, Broad City, but Middle America, The Office.
Damn.
All the time. It's crazy.
Angela Kinsey is super sweet.
Yeah, very nice. I did my scenes with her. She was so nice.
She's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Fuck, man. I really appreciate you being here, man. Hearing your story.
Thanks for letting me ramble. I'm sorry if
No,
I
this is
talked too much. I was
incredible,
just so
man.
excited to do it. And,
Dude, it's an honor to have
to
you.
bring it full circle again. Like, the main reason I wanted to be here, if anybody's bored by me, that's fine. I can take it. But, like, I needed to let you know how much it meant to me that you cut through the bullshit and asked me if I was okay all those years ago. Because I wasn't okay back then. And you were the first person to check in on it.
I'm glad you're okay now.
Yeah, doing better. Still have my ups and downs.
I know.
Yeah.
I know, man. It's an honor to meet you too, and I'm stoked on your journey, everything you accomplished, and making the world laugh and helping people too, getting through their anxiety and their depression too.
Did my best, and now the young bucks got to take the torch, and I'm just gonna tell dad jokes. I need the young people to say some relevant shit, because I just am gonna talk about my son now. So.
And people can find you on internet, social media,
ChrisGeth.com, and Chris Geth on Instagram, and Chris Gethard on Twitter, and I'm beautiful.
Are you on
anonymous.
social media a lot? Do you talk to people a lot?
To a degree, yeah. I've.
Do you respond to DMs or negative comments?
Sometimes I respond to DMs, but sometimes, especially since my son was born, I try to create a few more boundaries.
Yeah.
I used to be very, very interactive on it.
Mm-hmm.
Had a couple situations that got scary. Like, I'm sure you've
Like
run into
threats?
this as well. No, well, I'm sure you've run into this as well. Like, when you make a portion of your work about mental illness and you try to just create a conversation about it, you also attract some mentally ill people.
Yes.
And I'm very happy that I've been able to help some people.
Yes.
I've also had some situations where I go, this doesn't totally feel safe anymore. And it's made me pull back a little from social media in general. It's really just like, while my son is young,
Yes.
I felt like I gotta pull back and be a little more private.
Yeah.
I can't, there was a stretch where I was like, I got to be a little quiet about my location, like one of those
Totally.
situations.
Yeah,
so I was
sure.
just like, and you think about that. I used to have that back when I was on public access, because my show was weird, and I used to, somebody ordered a T-shirt that had my return address on it. I was a small potato. Like now, the idea of I used to laugh. People would be like, "Dude, this is your real return address." Like, what if somebody who's crazy knocks on the door? I'd be like, "I'll probably put him on the show. Let's figure it out," and laugh about it. Now I'm like,
no.
I got some intense fans. I'm very blessed to have them, but also like,
What if they show up with a weapon?
Yeah, I can't. I've had a couple situations where I'm like, I got to pull back. So not as interactive as I used to be, and I do feel bad about that.
We have a new special too. I mean, last one was Career Suicide, right? HBO 2017.
I did that one, and then
Rusty was talking about that one earlier.
Yeah, that was on HBO. Then I did one called Half My Life, where I went to 9 or 10 different
2021.
Yeah, a bunch of different venues, and we had like some travel footage in between. And I wanted to show. I do a lot of like music venues and DIY venues to this day.
I love that.
And a lot of times my fans will come, and they'll be like middle-aged people who have never stepped foot in a place like that. So I wanted to show off some of those venues.
You grew up going to,
Yeah, and then the next one will be A Father and the Son, and that'll be out on Audible sometime this year. I think in a couple months.
Nice.
Yeah, and I'm doing a beautiful anonymous fan festival in May, but I don't know if people hear this before that.
Oh, like your live podcast?
Yeah, well, I'm doing
a festival with the anonymous fan.
Well, there's going to be a whole thing. We're going to do a bunch of live tapings of the show, these comedy shows with Killer Bills. Some live music from this band Shell Shag, great New York duo that plays the theme song to my podcast. Movie screenings, a big event where you can meet all these past callers who are like de-anonymizing themselves. And you can come. We're almost going to set up like a science fair where they're each going to have a table. You can walk around, meet all these people you've heard on the show.
That's cool, man.
We had a caller who lost her daughter to cancer. We're going to do a benefit show for her. All the money from that one's going to the March of Time, Make-A-Wish.
Yep.
Nice.
So we're just trying to blow it out. It's May 4th through 7th. So either you will hear this first and come to it, or you can hear about it afterwards. But yeah, just trying to do some good.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to add, Rusty Pistachio?
Total random question, not related to any of this, because.
Hold the mic closer, Russ, because your voice.
Do you have a favorite pizza spot in Jersey?
Wow,
dude. Jersey, I like that you're asking that, because Jersey, quietly, I don't want to piss off New Yorkers here.
It's true, they got really good pizza.
Jersey stands toe to toe. there's actually, I mean, there's a lot of really great places. I grew up going to a place in Orange called the Star Tavern, which does what's called a bar pie, which is like cracker crust, like cracker thin crust. Star Tavern historically is amazing. There's also a new place in Morristown called Caniglio's, and they have been crushing it. They've been around less than a year, but it's insanely good pizza. And apparently, you know DeFaro's in Brooklyn, the famous guy? Apparently, the guy who runs Caniglio's is the only person to officially apprentice under Dom DeMarco from DeFaro's.
Jeez.
So that spot has been catching a lot of buzz, and I've been there, I think, 3 times, and it exceeds the hype. The hype is real.
Are you a coffee guy?
I'm not a coffee guy now.
Wow. Because I thought it'd be a good question for Rusty.
So I'm glad.
You don't fuck with coffee at all.
I picked the pizza.
Just
No.
tea? You do tea?
I do tea sometimes, yeah. But yeah, coffee.
He's a coffee connoisseur.
Coffee makes my stomach go nuts.
Me too, man.
Can't do
Me
it.
too.
There's actually this weirdo artist, punk DIY guy named John Kaz in New Jersey, and he roasts his own coffee beans and has a company called Kaz Coffee. So I got to shout out my Jersey punk guy. He's
okay.
he's like a punk musician skater guy. And he
Good
roasts his
coffee?
own coffee. Yeah. I have tasted it, and my wife is a coffee drinker, and she likes it
Okay.
too. So Kaz Coffee, baby, New Jersey's own. Always got to
Yeah.
support the Jersey punks.
But coffee makes your stomach and
I
jittery and
can't,
shittery
yeah.
and all
I
that.
got so much anxiety that when you throw coffee on top of it,
Oh,
I
yeah,
just
it'll
spend my
increase.
whole I
Fucks
spend
me
my
up,
whole day on
bro.
the toilet.
It's like a crazy drug for me that I
Yeah.
can't do it.
Can't.
It's nuts.
Yeah.
Fuck. Well, I want to see you perform someday, man.
Yeah.
I'll look out for your
Come
dates.
through. Let me know when you guys come through Jersey or New York. I mean, I can't imagine. When you guys play New York, it's still nuts,
We're
right?
playing there with Gorilla Biscuit September 8th in Brooklyn. Save the date. I just
What
announced on the
venue?
podcast. Monarch in Brooklyn.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
H2OGB
come hang
September 8th. You got to
Dude.
come.
That,
Babysitter.
You know Ian
babysitter.
Fidance?
yeah.
He's going to come and sing Freddie Madball's part
Oh, that's
for
awesome.
Guilty by Association.
You guys in Gorilla Biscuits in Brooklyn that's gonna be.
And we're playing Jersey
mayhem.
too. I can find out where. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Let
Maybe
me
House
know.
of Independence. Or
Oh yeah, that's where the
Crossroads.
Ergs and Markman are. Oh dude, two of my favorite venues.
Great venues. Dude.
Crossroads. That guy Andy Diamond who
I was
runs.
talking to him today.
What a
Andy, yeah.
lovable
Oh,
maniac of a
Crossroads.
man.
Crossroads.
So down up the street from Crossroads, we'll swing it back to the pizza.
Oh yeah, they got that.
I forget
Is
the
it
name.
Nola's?
We went straight to it. Yeah.
Nola's?
I think
The mic rest.
Nola's.
I think it might be Nola's in Garwood.
I brought pizza back to the venue because
Yeah.
I heard, I was like, yeah, this is a great spot. So I go in to order pizza, and while I'm there, the guy comes out, waits on a super suite. Within 5-10 minutes, the whole kitchen goes into chaos. One guy's picking up like a pizza slicer, and he's waving it. Another guy's picking up. It looks like a pickaxe.
Oh, it's a fight. It's a
Yeah,
beef.
total fight.
Oh really?
And
Oh, shit.
all in Italian. And I was like,
Amazing.
yeah, this reminds
Jersey,
me of my
baby.
family. So it was kind of cool.
Well, that place is great. There's that. I'm fairly certain it's Nola's in Garwood. If you do Asbury Park, there's Porta, which is great
Yeah,
pizza,
we-
and Tallulah's, which
Tallulah's
Tallulah's
is-
is
yeah,
right
Tallulah's
next to
great.
House of Independence.
yeah,
That place
so
is great.
Okay.
it's just food great. I'll give him I don't want to end it on a negative.
Yeah, you can't do that, Rusty.
Nope.
Joe Ovation, turn fucking Rusty's mic up when you hear this episode.
Turn my mic up.
Rusty talks super. Rusty, thank you
yes.
for being here.
But yes,
What a
Tallulah's
joy.
great food. Great
Yeah.
food.
And thank you guys. Thank you for having me.
Dude,
Thanks
thank
for
you, man.
making your songs and introducing me to the Smiths, and for looking out for a sad kid back in the day. It's really,
Dude, it's great
That's
it's
awesome.
great to finally meet you, man, in
Yeah.
person and heard the
Yeah.
stories, and
yeah.
really awesome meeting you and connecting.
Likewise.
Thank you for your time, Rusty. Thank you for being at Chappelle. Thanks
Yes.
for hanging. And yeah,
So cool.
thanks for listening, everybody. Peace. Bye. I always ask my guests if they have any regrets. I personally don't have any regrets. Even when it comes to my tattoos, I have the silliest tattoos. Even my ET on my leg, it's still a childhood memory for me, and I love it. I've had tattoos on top of tattoos strictly because I wanted more tattoos. I started getting tattoos when I was 18. I'm 52 now, and I can't stop. I've had laser treatment before on something on my arm. It's 4 tattoos on top of each other. And that experience at that place was pretty fast. It was pretty cold. It was in and out, swipe the credit card. Don't really tell me much. Didn't give me much details or anything was going to happen. So I never went back. So as of most recently, I'm so lucky enough to have had 2 sessions at Removery Tattoo Removal. My tattoo on my arm that looks like a big black blob is now super light. I've had 2 sessions. I have a long road ahead of me. None of this stuff happens overnight. You cannot take a tattoo up in one sitting. You have to be patient. And it's painful. They ice you up. It's super fast. To me, it felt like a bunch of rubber bands. But what's more painful than that is looking at something on your body that you think you're stuck with for the rest of your life. That sucks. But now for me, I'm really happy I started this journey. I'm slowly going to get this tattoo removed. I never thought in a million years I have any kind of real estate on my arm. I don't even know what I want, but it's exciting. I'm so honored to announce that One Life, One Chance podcast is now with Removery. I have a code. Use TobyH20 and get $100 off your first session. Call 866-934-4570 or go to Removery.com. One of the most experienced tattoo removal companies in the world. Over 600,000 removal treatments done. 100 locations, U.S., Canada, and Australia. State-of-the-art peak-away laser technology, cryotechnology to reduce any discomfort. This is so exciting for me because all I do in these podcasts is talk about tattoos. From day one, if you've been listening to the podcast, talk about tattoos, talk about getting removed, talk about getting covered up. So this is such a perfect fit for me. Once again, go to Removery.com or call 866-934-4570. Use my code TobyH20 and get $100 off. These guys are located everywhere. Try it out.